Chapter 343. Sai, have you heard? In order to forge a sword, the little sect leader killed her own mother. Shh! Don't spout nonsense. We'll keep this to ourselves. I even heard that a male disciple sparred with her a few days ago, and he was severely injured. No way. Why is she so hostile? That's why no one dares to get close to her now. Lu Qianhuan sat on the steps. The sun shone down on her indifferent face, making her appear extremely cold. She and the great ice sword were connected telepathically, so her hearing was also extremely sharp. Naturally, she could hear the hushed conversation between two disciples in the distance. However, she didn't get angry. Instead, she sat there quietly. She felt that those people were right. She didn't have any friends. Thinking back to the past, it seemed like only her mother had accompanied her all this time. Her mother was her only friend. Now, she had caused her mother's death. That male disciple sparred with her out of goodwill. She sparred with the same standards as when she sparred with her mother. However, she had accidentally injured that male disciple. Mother, apart from making more friends, I've done everything you asked of me. I practice my swordsmanship for 8 hours every day. I'm not arrogant, I'm low-key, I don't rely on my father, I don't flaunt my wealth, and I'm not picky with my food. Huan still passed, right? The girl raised her head and stared blankly at the blue sky. She wanted to see something, and she wanted to hear some sort of response. However, all she got was silence and the autumn wind. 5 years later, Lu Qianhuan was 15 years old. Her inky black hair fell to her slender waist. Her figure was slender, and her features were extremely beautiful. However, she was also cold and aloof. She became a famous iceberg beauty in the sect. She still didn't have any friends. It wasn't that no one tried to approach her. To be honest, even if she had a cold personality, there were still people who were willing to try and communicate with her. Moreover, Lu Mingxian secretly encouraged other young disciples to communicate with her. However, all of this was to no avail. She shut herself off. She practiced her swordsmanship alone, read books alone, and enjoyed the scenery alone in the mountains behind the sect. Until one day, she saw her half-brother bring back a strange toy from the school. What is this? Oh, this is called a cell phone. Those moving images are called games. This is a good item from the mortal world. I've modified it. When it runs out of power, you can use your essence to recharge it. Do you want to play? Lu Qianhuan's purple eyes stared silently at the colorful world on the screen for a long time. Although the images of that world were crude, it was novel and interesting. It was separated from reality. Once she entered that world, she would have a new identity. It could be a pilot, it could be a general commanding the troops, it could be a soldier. The only thing that wasn't Lu Qianhuan, who had killed her mother with the great ice sword in her hand. She fell in love with mobile phones and games. She had found a partner, or a friend, who could bring her happiness. Yep, that was a cell phone. She didn't know when it started, but she slowly became addicted. Every day, aside from her unshakable swordsmanship practice, the only thing that accompanied her was this phone. She gradually became more optimistic, as if she had found a partner and someone to rely on. She even had a goal: learning Chinese characters, learning Mandarin, learning everything in the mortal world. At that time, she realized that her mother's last wish had finally been fulfilled. Mom, I have friends and I've found happiness. I'm happy every day, and I have many games to play. Huan, are you doing well? Hurry up and praise me, the young girl said happily as she pressed the phone button. A droplet of water dripped onto the screen like a clear lotus flower. It bloomed and was then wiped away. After being struck by the sword, the Void Spirit King's aura didn't decrease. Instead, it increased. Countless rainbow-colored lights converged on its body, forming a solid suit of armor. Lu Qianhuan looked on indifferently at the Void Spirit King, whose aura continued to increase. A blue glow flashed across her eyes. Frosty heavens! As her voice fell, A blue frosty aura transformed into colorful silk that encircled her graceful body. The strange and distorted colors in the surroundings suddenly stopped moving and strangely dissipated. Blue and white became the main colors of heaven and earth. Frost and snow fell incessantly, and the cold was bone-chilling. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Everything fell silent, and ice and snow covered the sky. The flames in the Void Spirit King's eyes seemed like they were about to be frozen by heaven and earth. However, it wasn't afraid at all. A terrifying aura erupted from its body, and it slashed its crimson scythe toward the woman in front of it. Its body was so fast that it transformed into a blur. However, its speed strangely became slower and slower. When it was only 3 feet away from the woman, it actually froze on the spot. Fear appeared in the Void Spirit King's eyes for the first time. A soul-piercing chill enveloped its entire body. Lu Qianhuan's expression didn't change in the slightest. She raised her great ice sword and slashed it down at the Void Spirit King. A blue sword projection fell just like that. It wasn't a majestic scene, but it was imbued with the true intent of severing one's consciousness with a single strike. A white line appeared on the Void Spirit King's body, and it was sliced in half. The 2 halves fell onto the white snowy ground and dissipated into green smoke. It had died a silent death. Congratulations, you've passed the Void Spirit Tribe trial. Lu Qianhuan sheathed her long sword and retracted her frosty heaven's domain. Her cold and aloof demeanor also slowly disappeared along with her intent realm. How boring! I thought the hell mode would be difficult. What a trashy dungeon. I can take on 10 of these Void Spirit Tribe members. She scorned the trial mercilessly before putting away the inheritance that had fallen from the sky. Within a certain dark space. Trashy dungeon? Trashy dungeon? She could take on 10? The bald male's face was already filled with despair upon hearing this. My dear grandaunt, please spare me. It's not that the Void Spirit King isn't strong, it's that you're inhumanly strong. Within the stone chamber, Lu Qianhuan saw her team members waiting for her. Hey Lu Qianhuan, why are you so slow? Don't tell me you've been playing in there? Enlin greeted her with a smile. Lu Qianhuan high-fived Enlin with a chuckle. It's not that I've been playing in there. It's just that the prelude to the hell mode is too long. I spent a long time waiting for the boss to appear, and then the boss transformed during battle, so I had to wait even longer. Wow! Big Sister Lu, it's actually the hell mode? Are the monsters in there strong? Tian Lingling instantly looked at Lu Qianhuan with reverence upon hearing that it was the hell mode. They're too weak. I took care of them in 2 strikes, and I didn't even use my trump card. Lu Qianhuan pondered for a moment before replying with a serious expression. Tian Lingling was about to become a fangirl upon hearing this. Even Enlin nodded in agreement. He felt like Lu Qianhuan was becoming more and more like him, and he was very pleased. Tang Shimin still hasn't come out? Lu Qianhuan thought that she was the last person to come out, but after coming to her senses, she discovered that one person was still missing. At this moment, Tang Shimin was still chasing after a black dragon, but he couldn't catch up to it no matter what. Chapter 344. A black figure whizzed past in the murky sky, occasionally spitting scorching flames behind it as if it were spitting saliva. A cultivator chased after it relentlessly, slashing at the flames with his sword as he cursed incessantly. This black figure and cultivator were none other than the black dragon from the Dragon Tribe trial, and Tang Shimin, who was trying to defeat it. This pursuit had already been going on for a long time. The black dragon was unable to defeat Tang Shimin in a head-on battle, but it was able to fly at an extremely fast speed, so it decided to engage in guerrilla warfare. As a result, Tang Shimin was forced into a passive position. Stupid C** and T lizard, stop if you have the guts. Let's fight fair and square. Tang Shimin cursed as he chased after it with all his might. The reply he received was still a cold sneer from the black dragon, as well as scorching flames from its mouth. Shameless, simply too shameless. Tang Shimin had never encountered such a shameless enemy. This black dragon was a disgrace to the proud and powerful dragon tribe. Stupid C*NT cultivator, catch me if you have the guts. If you catch me, I'll let you, hee hee. The black dragon chuckled as it retorted without any sense of guilt. The veins on Tang Shimin's forehead bulged upon hearing this. This dragon was shameless enough to spit at him even as it was fleeing for its life. How could he tolerate this? This was simply intolerable. Vital lightning slash. He roared as he slashed out with his longsword, creating two white lightning sword projections that formed the shape of a cross. The sword projections whistled toward the black dragon with a ferocious aura as lightning crackled in their wake. Unexpectedly, the black dragon was already very familiar with Tang Shimin's sudden counterattack. He immediately reacted extremely quickly and moved diagonally downwards, dodging Tang Shimin's attack with ease and grace. Ha ha ha, you're still too young to be able to hit me. The black dragon watched as the cross-blade slash, carrying with it the sharp gleam of lightning, whizzed past its body and began to laugh loudly in satisfaction. Tang Shimin's expression darkened further and further. The black dragon's stamina hadn't been depleted even after chasing him for so long. This was evident from how it was able to dodge his sword strike. If things continued like this, perhaps he would be the first one to fall. Just as he was hesitating, a loud pft suddenly erupted from not far away. The dark green gas was like a hurricane, catching him off guard and bringing with it an incomparably foul odor. Ha 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 ha! You can only eat my fart if you follow behind me. How does it taste? Do you still want it? The black dragon's extremely savage laughter could be heard, and it even twisted its butt to demonstrate its power. Tang Shimin's body trembled with rage, and he almost threw up blood on the spot. This fart finally became the fuse that made him make up his mind. Damn it, so what if I collapse for 3 days? I'll fight you to the death. Tang Shimin suddenly slit his own wrist with his sword. His blood began to glow with a dazzling crimson light under the guidance of a certain spell technique, which then wound itself around the blade of his sword. The power in his body was quickly drawn out by his blood and gathered on the longsword. In an instant, the red light from the longsword soared into the sky, as if it wanted to tear apart the gloomy sky. The power it contained caused the wind and clouds to surge and the space to tremble. The black dragon also sensed the terrifying power behind it. For the first time, it felt the threat of death. Without thinking, it sped up with all its might. Brother, put down your sword. Let's talk this out. The black dragon roared. Hee hee, you're finally begging for mercy? But it's too late. Tang Shimin chuckled coldly as he pointed 2 fingers at the black dragon. Go! The longsword, which was imbued with astonishing power, transformed into a crimson streak of light and pierced toward the black dragon at an extremely terrifying speed. The black dragon turned pale with fright, and it immediately changed its position in mid-air in an attempt to evade the flying sword's attack. However, not only was the flying sword extremely fast, but it was also extremely agile. When the black dragon changed its position, the flying sword also changed its position. The black dragon opened its mouth and spat out a streak of flames. However, the flying sword was imbued with unstoppable power, and it tore the massive streak of flames in half. No! The black dragon roared before feeling a chill run down its spine. Immediately afterward, its stomach, neck, and head. The crimson streak of light pierced through the black dragon's entire body at an extremely terrifying speed. Boom! The massive black dragon's body finally lost all signs of life, and it plummeted from the sky before crashing heavily onto the ground. Congratulations! You've passed the Dragon Tribe trial. Tears welled up in Tang Shimin's eyes as he looked at the light of inheritance descending from the sky. He had succeeded. He had finally succeeded. He was finally no longer the man who had nothing to gain. While his teammates were receiving divine weapons, divine flames, and immortal fruits, Tang Shimin was dealt a heavy blow. He was the most outstanding senior in the team, but he was the only one who had nothing to gain from this trial, however. He had finally received the inheritance this time. Even though he had paid a heavy price, at least he had succeeded. After receiving the inheritance from the dragon tribe, Tang Shimen's eyes lit up. This was the dragon flight technique. No wonder the black dragon was able to run away so quickly. He had most likely learned this technique as well. A spatial gate began to appear. Tang Shimen looked at the gate, and his legs suddenly gave out from under him, and he collapsed to the ground. The after effects of using the mystic technique had appeared, and he was completely drained of energy for 3 days. Unlin and the others waited in the stone chamber for a long time, but Tang Shimen still didn't appear. Time passed by slowly, and the more time passed by, the heavier everyone's hearts became. Senior student Tang wouldn't have encountered some kind of mishap, right? Hu Guan asked with an uneasy expression. If it really was a difficult mode trial, then he shouldn't have died. Xian Yuanqing said with furrowed brows. Tang Shimen was the most outstanding cultivator among the 4th-year students. He was extremely powerful, and he most likely had many trump cards up his sleeves as well. There was no reason for him to die in a trial of this level. Unlin stared at the empty passageway in silence. He had said that he would meet Tang Shimen here, so he had to wait until Tang Shimen appeared. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally saw a figure slowly crawling toward him. That's right, that figure was in an extremely sorry state, and he was crawling over. Senior student Tang. Unlin yelled as tears welled up in his eyes. Just what kind of grueling battle had he been through? He was perfectly fine, but now both of his legs were crippled. All of the other team members also stared at the figure crawling toward them with anguish on their faces. This spatial passageway was one way, so they could only look on as Tang Shimen crawled toward them in an extremely tragic manner. Tang Shimen raised his head to look at the group of people at the end of the passageway, who had tears in their eyes and expressions of sympathy on their faces, and he felt King toothache. I'm paralyzed because of exhaustion. Do you guys have to be like this? Why are you guys acting as if I've already sacrificed myself? Are you guys looking down on us? Huh. Tang Shimen had finally obtained an inheritance, but it was as if he had suddenly become the most pitiful person in the entire team. He felt as if his pride had been insulted. After crawling out of the spatial passageway, Tang Shimen was very gently carried onto the black brick by Enlin. All of the team members offered words of consolation, not giving Tang Shimen any chance to explain himself. Listen to me, I couldn't catch up to the black dragon, so I had to use a mystic technique. That's enough. No need to explain, senior student Tang. Rest well and leave the rest to us. Senior student Tang, life is the most important thing. As long as you live, anything is possible. We won't look down on you just because you're a cripple. Tang Shimen. Within the darkness, the bald male finally heaved a sigh of relief. He was very thankful to Tang Shimen. Finally, a more pitiful person had appeared. This was more like a trial. Black spirit snake shot a cold glance at the bald male. The bald male's body trembled as a boundless chill swept over him, causing cold sweat to pour down his back and almost suffocate him. Only after a while did he feel the chill disappear. What? You're a little happy that the trial was very successful? Black Spirit Snake asked with a smile. The bald male felt as if he had just taken a stroll through the gates of hell. He lowered his head and didn't dare to say anything. Go, change the next 3 nodes to hell difficulty. This team is too powerful, I'm sure Shou Yang won't mind us doing this, Black Spirit Snake continued. Alright, Master Black, I'll do it right away. The bald male didn't dare to refuse Black Spirit Snake's request, and he immediately ran off to raise the level of the tomb to the highest possible level. According to the original settings, the last 3 nodes were at normal difficulty. Now, they skipped over the hard difficulty and changed to hell difficulty. He didn't dare to imagine what would happen, but since this was Black Spirit Snake's request, he could only comply. Chapter 345. In order to redeem his image, Tang Shiman took this opportunity to explain his experiences in the Dragon Tribe trial to everyone in an earnest manner. Hearing this, everyone nodded and listened attentively. However, for some reason, the sympathy in their eyes became even more pronounced. F***ck. Do they think I'm making this up? Tang Shiman lay on the black brick, and he couldn't help but grieve. Senior Ziyang, I'll leave the task of protecting senior student Tang to you, Unlin instructed with a solemn expression. After becoming their guide, Battle God Ziyang had become Tang Shiman's babysitter. The pitiful battle god had no say in this, and could only accept his fate obediently. After resting for a while, everyone decided to continue onward. After pushing open the heavy stone gate, they were greeted by a black passageway that gradually widened. The aura of danger and chaos could be sensed even from within the passageway. Unlin furrowed his brows. He felt like this aura was extremely familiar. After passing through the passageway, they appeared on a piece of decaying earth. That's right, this was a type of decay that was heading toward destruction. Not a single blade of grass grew, rocks were decaying, structures were collapsing, and the air was oppressive. It was as if everything in front of them was about to collapse into nothingness. The 10 Realm Guardian tribes have arrived in this alternate dimension. Please exterminate all foreign tribes that have appeared. The sudden voice in the sky caused everyone to falter momentarily. It sounds like we're part of the 10 Realm Guardian tribes? Xian Yuanqing was a little surprised. It's probably because we accepted their inheritance, so they view us as part of them? Unlin was also a little speechless. Haha, so this is role-playing then? Interesting. Lu Qianhuan was excited. It was quite clear that they had become part of the 10 Realm Guardian tribes and were responsible for exterminating foreign tribes and protecting this world. Is that the point? Don't you guys have anything to say about the fact that the trial is at hell difficulty? Tian Lingling's face was a little pale. Unlin came to a sudden realization upon hearing this. He turned to the middle-aged man beside him and said, Senior Ziyang, I'll leave Tian Lingling's safety to you as well. Battle God Ziyang. Tian Lingling. Boom! Right at this moment, the ground suddenly collapsed and split open, revealing a pitch-black hole. Unlin gripped his evil-slaying sword tightly as he stared at the black crater. Then, an extremely dangerous aura overflowed from the inside of the pit. Chaos, distortion, violence, fear. All sorts of negative mental energy spread in all directions, as if trying to pull everyone into an abyss. 3 figures leaped out of the pit. They were made of a sticky, pitch-black, twisted substance, but they were extremely solid. A pair of red eyeballs were trembling at a high frequency, giving off a feeling of madness. The moment Unlin saw them, he knew what they were: demons. Not only was it a nefarious demon, but it was also a high-level nefarious demon. Just like the leader of the nefarious demons that they had met in the abyss of evil, it was incomparably solid and gave off an extremely dangerous feeling. Everyone, be careful. Don't be pierced by the black substance, or your mind will be severely damaged. Unlin reminded. He still remembered the time when he was stabbed by the nefarious demon and almost became a nefarious demon. Thankfully, Xiao Hong was there to heal him with her light. Otherwise, he really wouldn't have been able to hold on. Just as they were speaking, the 3 nefarious demons transformed into black afterimages as they charged toward the team members. One of the nefarious demons charged directly toward Unlin, and a peculiar smile could be seen on its pitch-black face. Unlin's expression remained unchanged as he slashed his evil-slaying sword toward the nefarious demon's face at lightning speed, leaving a crescent sword projection of 100 feet in length in its wake. The nefarious demon's body twisted uncannily, and it evaded the astonishing sword projection. At the same time, it extended its palm toward Unlin. As its arm wriggled, the black substance suddenly elongated like a sharp sword being unsheathed, so fast that the air screeched. After all, Unlin had battled a nefarious demon once before, so he was already prepared and immediately raised his sword to defend himself. The black substance crashed into the evil-slaying sword, and the tremendous force of the collision caused him to slide back. The nefarious demon was just about to give chase when a flaming sword projection imbued with lightning suddenly appeared before it. The sword projection instantly engulfed the nefarious demon's body. The nefarious demon wailed in anguish as it stumbled back in retreat. However, the green figure pressed forward in a domineering manner and unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks. Seeing this, Unlin realized that Su Xiaolan had stolen the limelight. How could he allow this? He immediately materialized wings of wind behind his back and pounced toward the nefarious demon without any hesitation. The second nefarious demon charged toward Tang Shimen, who was lying on the black brick. However, it was blocked by Xianyuan Qing, Su Qianyun, Yao Mingxi, and Hu Guan. Under their combined attacks, the nefarious demon was forced into retreat. The last nefarious demon wanted to kill White Spirit Snake, but it was completely crushed by Battle Goddess Bai Qiong. The battle had only just begun, and the nefarious demon was already at an absolute disadvantage. Lu Qianhuan looked on from the sidelines. It didn't seem like she needed to do anything, so she launched a light cannon at the nefarious demon from time to time. However, right at this moment, a wailing sound suddenly emanated from the black crater. Immediately afterward, an extremely thick pillar of black light soared into the sky. Hundreds and thousands of nefarious demons that were filled with boundless negative emotions rained down from the top of the pillar of light like a torrential downpour. Holy F***ck, so many? Unlin's flesh crawled as he looked up at the dense horde of nefarious demons in the sky. Soon, a dozen or so nefarious demons pounced toward him. A dozen or so nefarious demons were torn to shreds by his sword projection. These nefarious demons weren't very powerful. Most of them were of the Tao body stage or spirit nurturing stage. However, there were simply too many of them. From a rough estimate, there were hundreds or even thousands of nefarious demons on this land. If one was the slightest bit careless, they could be torn to shreds by these nefarious demons. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong unleashed her divine slash, and a boundless green sword projection sliced the powerful nefarious demon in front of her in half. The sword projection extended for over 1,000 feet, and a dozen or so nefarious demons were instantly annihilated by it. She hadn't even retracted her sword when another dozen or so nefarious demons pounced toward her. Bai Qiong's brows furrowed slightly as she looked at the horde of nefarious demons. She grabbed White Spirit Snake and flew toward Battle God Ziyang. She felt that Battle God Ziyang's area of effect flame attacks were the best way to deal with the nefarious demons. However, Battle God Ziyang was like a salted fish at this moment. He created a ring of flames around him, and whenever a nefarious demon charged into the ring of flames, he would instantly incinerate it. "Aren't you going to incinerate all the nefarious demons outside?" Bai Qiong asked as she pulled White Spirit Snake into the ring of flames. Battle God Ziyang replied expressionlessly, "My mission is only to protect Tian Lingling and Tang Shimen. Besides, I don't even have my divine flame anymore, so I don't have the ability to incinerate all the nefarious demons outside." It could be seen that Battle God Ziyang's resentment was quite deep. After Xianyuan Qing and the others slayed the powerful nefarious demon, they also retreated into the ring of flames created by Battle God Ziyang. "Oi, why aren't you guys attacking? All the nefarious demons have come to me, and I'm under a lot of pressure." Ziyang spoke with a displeased expression. "It's safer to stick together and defend." Xianyuan Qing spoke as he unleashed a long-range, immortal spell. Unlin and Su Xiaolan had also slain the powerful nefarious demon and were flying toward Battle God Ziyang's ring of flames. Gundam 1, Gundam 2, go to the ring of flames and release a protective barrier. Unlin took out the Gundams from his storage ring and issued an order. "Unlin, what are you doing?" Su Xiaolan raised her brows when she saw Unlin suddenly stop in his tracks. Me? I'm going to try out a new technique. A crimson symbol appeared on the back of Enlin's hand. Immediately afterward, a vast and boundless true flame intent swept forth in all directions. Chapter 346. Take care of yourself. Su Xiaolan heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing the true intent of flames erupt from Enlin's body, and she began to fly toward the location where her teammates were gathered. What is classmate Enlin trying to do? Xian Yuancheng looked up at Enlin with a concerned expression. Not only him, but all of the team members also turned to look at Enlin. At this moment, there were already several dozen sinister devils pouncing toward Enlin at the same time. They possessed violent auras, and they extended their sharp claws as they transformed into streaks of black shadows that pounced toward the man in the air. Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 landed within the circle of flames and activated their ionic deprivation protective barrier. Enlin intertwined his index fingers and pressed his thumbs together as he made an ancient hand seal. The space around him suddenly warped, and several dozen sinister devils howled in agony as their twisted, inky black bodies evaporated like water vapor, and thick white smoke rose from their bodies. Heavenly void flame appear. Boom! A transparent wave of flames swept forth, incinerating several dozen sinister devils into nothingness. Great holy flame appear. A yellow and white disk of light appeared behind Enlin, and the area within a radius of several thousand feet was instantly transformed into an inferno of light and heat. Even the air became extremely twisted and warped. The sinister devils on the ground writhed in pain from the scorching heat that suddenly appeared. Many sinister devils pounced toward Enlin with all their might, but they were all incinerated into ashes by the invisible heavenly void flame. Demonic star flame appear. Purple flames appeared in the sky, transforming into a sea of flames. Specks of white flames imbued with terrifying power, and they were as dazzling as stars within the sea of flames. Setting moon flame appear. On the ground below, waves of blue flames swept forth in all directions, covering an area of several kilometers. Countless sinister devils were frozen by these frosty flames, and their bodies began to melt in a bizarre manner. At this moment, the heavens, the earth, the sun, the moon, and the void had all transformed into a flaming inferno. All of the team members stared blankly at the scene unfolding before them with expressions of astonishment. At this moment, Enlin was the monarch of flames, standing proudly in the sky and commanding the flames of heaven and earth. Sea of divine flames, activate. Enlin's expression was calm. The rune on the back of his hand shone brightly. He was about to unleash his true, killing move. In the sky, the purple flames wrapped around the white starlight fell to the ground like a meteorite. The surging flames of the void transformed into an unstoppable river that surged toward the evil demons. The sun behind Shao Qin spewed out boundless golden flames that swept out in all directions with a berserk aura. On the ground, the dark blue flames set off a monstrous wave that engulfed all the evil spirits. In an instant, heaven and earth were turned into a purgatory furnace by the four flames, burning everything. Battle God Zi Yang's body trembled uncontrollably as he stared at this earth-shattering strike. Was this what it looked like to have attained the phenomenal success stage of the flame mantra? This concept of fire, this combination of fire techniques, was simply perfect. Even Battle Goddess Bai Qiong's eyes lit up, and an expression of admiration appeared on her face for the first time. Rumble! The four types of flames turned into the most terrifying slaughterhouse, incinerating all the demons on the ground into nothingness. Gundam 1 and Gundam 2's ion deprivation protective barriers were also showing signs of crumbling under the onslaught of the flames. This move that engulfed the heavens and the earth almost burned the entire world into pieces. After the flames subsided, the thousands of evil spirits were undoubtedly annihilated. The earth melted as if it had been roasted, and it even glowed with a faint red light. Enlin slowly descended to the ground. His vision darkened, and his body collapsed toward the ground in exhaustion. At this moment, a faint fragrance wafted toward him. His body was caught in the crook of a soft, jade-like arm. He turned around and saw an exquisitely beautiful woman looking at him with a faint smile. There was even a hint of curiosity in her clear eyes. "Who would have thought that you're even better at playing with fire than I am?" the woman praised. And Lin shook his head. "Don't praise me. This is the only move I know." And Lin felt like he had to be a bit more humble when facing Su Xiaolan. At the same time, he also didn't think that his new move would be so terrifying that it could instantly annihilate thousands of evil spirits. He was elated when he thought about how he now had an extremely powerful area of effect move. At this moment, the other team members also came up to him. Their faces were filled with amazement. In particular, Yao Mingxi, Hu Guan, and White Spirit Snake were so excited that they almost hugged him. They even said that Big Brother An was invincible, that he dominated the world, and that no one could stop him. They used all kinds of adjectives. White Spirit Snake even suggested changing Poison Lord's Dao name to Flame Tyrant. And Lin was dumbfounded. Since when did Poison Lord become his Dao name? Poison Lord was just a random title given to him by others. He didn't even have a Dao name yet. Even if he wanted to choose a Dao name, he couldn't choose a Dao name like Flame Tyrant, which was so unsophisticated. Things like Householder Qinglian or Sword Immortal and Hao were more in line with his style. A voice suddenly traveled down from the sky. "Congratulations, Realm Guardian trial, evil spirits have been successfully completed." Immediately afterward, a screen of light descended from the sky. Words appeared on the screen. And Lin, 11,200 points. Su Xiaolan, 2030 points. Xianyuan Qing, 1,800 points. Su Qianyun, 1,650 points. Yao Mingxi, 920 points. Hu Guan, 750 points. Lu Qianhuan, 570 points. Tian Lingling, 110 points. White Spirit Snake, 30 points. Tang Shiman, 0 points. The Battle God points were reset to 0. Only the scores were displayed, but no inheritance orbs descended. Everyone suddenly came to a realization as they looked at the scores. These were the trial contribution points, right? Perhaps they could use their points to obtain inheritances or exchange for some treasures at the end of the trial. And Lin had the highest score because he had instantly annihilated over 1,000 sinister devils. Lu Qianhuan had been slacking off this entire time. Even though she was powerful, she didn't have many points. As for Tian Lingling and White Spirit Snake, they were constantly unleashing immortal spells within the Ring of Flames and could occasionally kill 1 or 2 sinister devils, so they also had points. Tang Shiman was the worst off. 0 points was a little too glaring. Tang Shiman was speechless as he lay on his black brick and looked up at the screen in the sky. When he saw everyone's sympathetic expressions, his chest tightened even further. "Why are you all looking at me? Why are you all looking at me? I, Tang Shiman, am a man of indomitable spirit. I don't need your sympathy." However, after thinking about it, he realized that he had probably only obtained 1 inheritance from this trip, which was even less than Tian Lingling and White Spirit Snake, who had won all the inheritances by acting cute. He had obtained the least out of the 10 of them. With this in mind, he couldn't help but feel sad. A white spatial passageway began to appear. And Lin swallowed a blood spirit pill and rested with the others for a while before continuing onward. Within the dark space, Black Spirit Snake's fingers were interlaced as she looked at Lin and the others on the screen, and she tapped her fingernails lightly. Lin, Lu Qianhuan, Su Xiaolan, Xianyuan Qing, and Su Qianyun. These people are all cultivators close to the Battle God rank. With Ziyang and Little Qing, even if this was the Hell mode, they probably wouldn't be able to experience a life or death trial. If this trial doesn't even have life or death situations, then it wouldn't be a good trial. Saying this, Black Spirit Snake turned her gaze toward the bald male. Her pitch-black eyes were mesmerizing. "Seal 80% of your power." At the final checkpoint, act as a big boss and snipe them. Hearing this, the bald male trembled and lowered his head obediently. As you command, Master Black. Chapter 347. Lin and the others walked through the spatial passageway and arrived at the second spatial node. They were greeted by the sight of a strange world. Here, the sky was covered by a thick layer of rock, the ground was scorching hot, and there was crimson lava flowing slowly through the ground. The air was suffused with a pungent poisonous gas. Lin looked around at his surroundings and felt like this was the second layer of the underground world. During the Tao Exchange Conference of the Four Powers, the first stage of the desperate survival competition was extremely similar to the scene before him. However, the space they had arrived at this time was many times wider than last time, and the rock layer above them was also much taller. Just as Lin was sighing with emotion, the rock layer above them suddenly began to crack open. Boom! A few inky black figures crashed to the ground amid a resounding boom. Lin focused his gaze, and an expression of surprise appeared on his face. 9 strange creatures had appeared before him. All of them were inky black in color, and their biological structures were extremely stable, unlike the chaotic and twisted sinister devils. Furthermore, they were imbued with extremely vast amounts of energy, striking one with a sense of oppression. Their appearances were all different. Some of them walked upright like humans, some of them were huge tigers with 2 heads, and there was even an elephant with a pair of black web-like wings on its back. These are the demons of hell of the Tai Chu continent. Legend has it that they live in the cracks in the ground and grow by absorbing the energy of death and geothermal energy. They are renowned for their extremely powerful life force, which is comparable to that of the blood tribe. Everyone, please be careful, Xian Yuan Cheng warned with a grave expression. The demons of hell panted heavily, and their breathing was clearly audible underground. Their crimson eyes stared intently at everyone with a bloodthirsty expression. For some reason, the atmosphere became very tense. Just as the two sides were facing off, a voice suddenly sounded. "I'll lead the way." A pink-haired woman raised her 6-feathered staff and quickly rotated it in front of her as she spoke. Boom! A scorching white pillar of light tore through the ground before crashing toward the 2-headed tiger. That pillar of light was none other than Lu Qianhuan's signature technique, Final Spark. The 2-headed tiger was caught off guard and didn't even have a chance to evade before the pillar of light pierced through its head. The pillar of light was imbued with extremely powerful energy, blasting a ghastly hole into its head. Roar! The other 8 netherworld demons exploded forth and pounced towards Lin and the others. The twin-headed tiger, which had been pierced by the final flash, did not collapse. As the hole wriggled, the black flesh and blood slowly stuck together and fused together before returning to its original state. Lu Qianhuan knew that this battle was not going to end easily. She was not discouraged and flew toward the double-headed tiger with her staff in high spirits. A netherworld demon in the form of a human pounced towards Lin. It held a small sword in its hand and suddenly stabbed forward, transforming into a series of black afterimages. Its speed was so fast that even Lin found it difficult to keep up with it. He knew that this group of netherworld demons was very strong when they exchanged blows just now. They were so powerful that only Xian Yuan Qing, Su Qianyun, Su Xiaolan, and Lu Qianhuan could handle them. Yao Mingxi and Hu Guan couldn't handle them on their own. Soon, Hu Guan was struck in the chest by a huge black python. The force of the collision was so powerful that he spat out mouthfuls of blood as he flew through the air. Lin slashed out a black sword projection to force the netherworld demon into retreat. He then took this opportunity to summon the 2 Gundams to reinforce Hu Guan and the others. First technique, Wind Sword. Wings of wind appeared on his back, and his speed increased explosively. His evil-slaying sword slashed through the neck of the netherworld demon in the form of a human, and black blood gushed forth. The netherworld demon clasped its neck and stumbled back a few steps. its muscles squirmed, and the fatal wound was forcibly repaired to its original state. Unlin was extremely annoyed at the sight of this vitality. These netherworld demons were even more troublesome to deal with than sinister devils. Sinister devils had high attack power, but these netherworld demons had high vitality, just like the blood tribe. Roar! An anguished howl suddenly traveled over from the distance. Unlin looked in that direction out of the corner of his eye and saw that the huge centipede-like sinister devil in front of Xianyuan Qing had collapsed to the ground. Its vitality had been severed, and it was slowly beginning to melt. Big Brother Qing is so powerful? Right at this moment, Xianyuan Qing had already slashed toward the python that was engaged in battle with the Gundam. Big Brother Qing's sword techniques were light and graceful, and a series of white sword projections transformed into countless thin webs that tore through the python's skin. These attacks weren't lethal, but the python's extremely powerful vitality was unable to heal its wounds. The python's heavy attacks would usually be deflected by Xianyuan Qing into the ground, causing the earth to tremor and crack open as massive craters appeared. After a series of intense battles, Xianyuan Qing's body drifted back like a bird. Myriad spirit fate, death. He raised his sword to his eyebrows, and a mysterious ripple passed through the air before acting upon the python's body. Hiss! The python howled in agony as the wound inflicted by Xianyuan Qing quickly festered, and its vitality was also being stripped away at an alarming rate. Its powerful vitality, which it was so proud of, was completely defenseless in the face of this erosion. Unlin finally witnessed with his own eyes how Big Brother Qing defeated these clingy demons during his battle with the demons of hell. The Tao of Myriad Spirit Tai Chi was the Tao of Yin and Yang, life and death. This technique treated all special life forms equally. A curse would be placed upon the target, and the curse would kill the target. This freakishly powerful cultivation method was extremely difficult to master, but Big Brother Qing had an extremely deep understanding of it. This was why he was favored by the true gods. Upon seeing this, Unlin knew that he couldn't use Big Brother Qing's method anymore. The home ground of this trial belonged to Big Brother Qing. After killing the python, Xianyuan Qing didn't stop there. Instead, he charged toward Yao Mingxi's battle and began to provide support. Unlin focused on his battle and finally managed to slash the demon before him twice with great difficulty. However, the demon shamelessly healed its wounds and continued to battle with vigor and vigor. As its wounds healed, the aura of the demons of hell would weaken slightly. However, its strength wouldn't decrease by much. Thus, this battle became a contest between the vitality of the demons of hell and their endurance. Unlin glanced toward White Spirit Snake. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong had captured a demon of hell and trapped it in a spell technique. Then, White Spirit Snake whipped it relentlessly. Come, Master White, hit it with all your might. The harder you hit it, the higher your score will be when you win. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong said with a doting expression. All right, little Qing, I'll do my best. There was a solemn expression on White Spirit Snake's beautiful face. She wielded the white bone lightning whip and whipped the demon wolf relentlessly. The demon wolf howled in humiliation. It wasn't humiliated because it couldn't win. Rather, it was humiliated because it was being whipped by the lightning whip. That feeling was like a man of indomitable spirit being locked in an iron cage, and then being sprayed in the face by a wimpy kid with a water gun. Unlin sighed with emotion upon seeing this. As expected, with a good beast pet, one could ascend to the pinnacle of life. As for Tian Lingling, she wasn't as lucky. She tossed a few talismans at the four-winged demonic bird in the sky, but none of them hit it. She could only watch on helplessly. After the four-winged demonic bird was blasted away by battle god Zi Yang's punch, it knew that it couldn't afford to provoke him. Thus, it decided to attack from a distance and unleash a few fierce wind blades from time to time. However, these attacks were not enough. They were all easily blocked by Ziyang. Battle god Ziyang didn't take the initiative to attack the demonic bird. In any case, His mission was to protect the two of them. If someone attacked him, he would block it. If no one attacked him, he would just stand there like an idiot. Unlin sighed softly. It looked like it was more reliable to wait for Big Brother Ching to end this battle. Wait a minute. A thought suddenly flashed through Unlin's mind, and he recalled something from the past. His eyes lit up. Perhaps he could also do something like this. Chapter 348. These demons of hell possessed extremely powerful life forces, comparable to those of the Blood Tribe. However, the Blood Tribe possessed extremely powerful life forces, but it had been poisoned to death by Unlin's blood. So could the demons of hell be poisoned to death by his blood? Unlin felt like this was worth a try. Even though he was very disdainful of people saying that his blood was poisonous, the truth was the truth, and it couldn't be changed. Thinking about how his blood could be used to rid the world of evil, that was quite a good thing. Unlin evaded the demon of hell's lunge, and blasted its inky black body with a punch before slashing his arm with the evil-slaying sword, staining the blade of the sword with blood. The inky black blade of the sword was stained with a hint of sinister coldness. "Little Xie, do you like the red makeup I put on for you?" Unlin suddenly asked as he looked at the blood-stained sword. "Evil-slaying sword. Stoneleji? No. You don't understand my pain." Unlin heaved a long sigh and shook his head with a forlorn expression. "If my blood was extremely poisonous, would you still follow me?" "Evil-slaying sword. Stupid C***T. Right at this moment, the demon that had been knocked back pounced toward Unlin again with a powerful aura. Unlin's eyes turned snowy white as he activated his divine inspection technique. First technique, Wind Sword. Unlin evaded the demon's lunge by a hair's breadth. He raised his wrist, and streams of white wind revolved around his evil-slaying sword, which was imbued with a faint red glow. A lethal sword projection instantly sliced a massive gash into the demon of hell's chest. Splat! Black blood splattered through the air as the demon was knocked back again. Unlin stared at the retreating demon with a tense expression on his face. It was time to prove whether his blood was poisonous to a single race, or to all races. The demon of hell clutched its wounded chest, and its flesh began to squirm in an attempt to heal its wound. However, right at this moment, its expression suddenly faltered, and it looked down at its wound to find that the black blood was flowing even more violently, showing no signs of stopping. This was the first time the infernal demon had encountered such a situation, and his eyes widened in shock as he immediately used a spell technique to seal his wound. Unexpectedly, in the next instant, its movements began to stiffen. As the corners of its mouth squirmed, black blood flowed out along with bubbles. Plop! The netherworld demon collapsed with a terrified expression on his face. His breathing slowly ceased. "So the poison in my blood isn't targeted at anyone." Unlin looked at the scene in front of him and murmured. He began to feel somewhat melancholic. The blood that could poison the blood race and the demons of the netherworld to death had already transcended species. He might even be able to poison other races to death. From the looks of it, his blood really seemed to be quite poisonous. Senior Poison Lord, you're so powerful!" White Spirit Snake yelled with excitement upon seeing that Unlin had already defeated a demon of hell. Venerable Poison Master? Unlin understood. This might be a connection that could not be severed in the unseen world. Perhaps the Taoist title of Lord of Poison was really fated with him, since this was fate. Then let the title of Poison Lord shine once again. Unlin took a deep breath. A pair of wings appeared on his back, and he flew toward the four-winged demonic bird in the sky. His speed was so fast that a powerful shockwave swept through the air around him. The four-winged demonic bird flapped its wings toward Unlin, and over 100 powerful wind blades rained down upon Unlin. Unlin activated his divine inspection technique and relied on the speed of his wings of wind, as well as his powerful ability to analyze openings. He transformed into an extremely agile streak of light and evaded all of the concentrated wind blades. First technique, Wind Sword. A sword strike imbued with white streams of wind sliced a massive sword gash into the four-winged demonic bird's body. Blood splattered through the air, and Enlin flew back to the ground with a confident expression, no longer looking at the demonic bird behind him. A few seconds later, the gigantic demonic bird crashed to the ground as if its wings had been snapped. Its vitality had also been completely severed. At this moment, Xianyuan Cheng had already helped Su Qianyun destroy a demon of hell. Meanwhile, Su Xiaolan activated the lightning flame spell formation and incinerated the winged elephant demon repeatedly before finally successfully killing it. Like a beautiful butterfly, Lu Qianhuan danced around the gigantic two-headed tiger. One powerful spell technique after another was unleashed from her staff. Forceful control, bombardment, forceful control, critical strike. The gigantic two-headed tiger pounced toward Lu Qianhuan in a frenzy, but it couldn't even touch the hem of her clothes. On the other hand, the fearsome spell techniques that were hurtling toward it all hit their target. No matter how powerful the gigantic two-headed tiger's vitality was, it had no way of retaliating. It was blasted to death just like that. My God, these demons of hell are King tough. Next time, I'll have to improve my magic penetration as well. Lu Qianhuan wiped the beads of sweat from her forehead as she panted heavily. Hearing this, Enlin grimaced. You can make up for the penetrative power of this spell? By a void staff? Lu Qianhuan, don't tell me that you can't differentiate between reality and illusion? Lu Qianhuan rolled her eyes at Enlin. Ignorant child, embedding soul-crushing ore and demonic blood fat on this staff will allow spell techniques to become sharper and more penetrative. Furthermore, it can also increase the fatality rate due to the demonic blood. My four balls? Enlin's mouth gaped open. He was rendered speechless by Lu Qianhuan's serious lecture. Holy sh*t. So Lu Qianhuan wasn't joking. This world really could improve spell penetration. The last demon of hell was the demonic wolf that Bai Qiong had trapped in a spell technique cage. It instantly fell into despair when it saw a few more terrifying cultivators surrounding it. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong didn't want to waste everyone's time after seeing that everyone else had finished their battles. Thus, she released the demonic wolf. After regaining its freedom, the demon wolf didn't even have time to sing its praises of freedom before it was drowned in an overwhelming wave of powerful spells in the next second. If the heavens gave it a chance to choose, it would definitely choose to return to the cage and enjoy White Spirit Snake's whipping. That place was practically heaven. Congratulations, Realm Guardian Trial, Demons of Hell chapter completed. Immediately afterward, a screen of light descended from the sky. Words appeared on the screen. Xianyuan Qing, 6,400 points. Enlin, 3,400 points. Su Xiaolan, 2,100 points. Lu Qianhuan, 2,100 points. Su Qianyun, 1,800 points. Yao Mingxi, 700 points. Hu Guan, 500 points. White Spirit Snake, 100 points. Tian Lingling, 10 points. Tang Shiman, 0 points. His Battle God contribution points were reset to 0. No one was surprised that Xianyuan Qing had the highest contribution point. After all, he was the one who had provided support everywhere during this trial. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong pursed her lips in dissatisfaction when she saw White Spirit Snake's 100 points. She only has 100 points after being whipped for so long? Does she even know how to calculate points? Tian Lingling looked at her pitiful 10 points, and a hint of indignation appeared in her large, watery eyes. However, when she glanced at Tang Shiman, who was lying on the black brick, her expression relaxed for some reason. Tang Shiman noticed the change in her expression, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Could it be that Tian Lingling felt better after seeing his 0 points? Just as everyone was recuperating and recovering their blood essence. Within the dark space, only a snake-tailed female remained. She sat lazily on a chair. She looked at Enlin and the others on the screen, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. She revealed a smile that was enough to enchant all living beings. Immediately afterward, a mesmerizing voice reverberated within the dark space. The show is finally about to begin. Chapter 349. Unlin and the others continued onward toward the final node. This was a vast expanse of lush green land with blue skies and white clouds. Even the air here was extremely fresh and clean. This place sure is comfortable. Su Qianyun narrowed her eyes and took a deep breath with an expression of enjoyment on her face. Unlin also felt genuinely relaxed as he surveyed his surroundings. However, he didn't know what kind of monsters would be born in such an environment. It was no wonder that he would think this way. One had to realize that they were part of the 10 Realm Guardian tribes, and the mission of the 10 Realm Guardian tribes was to exterminate all living beings that posed a threat to this world. The first 2 nodes were sinister devils and demons of hell, so there should be another monster tribe in this node as well. Right at this moment, a rift suddenly appeared in the sky. A silver-white ring-shaped flying object flew out of the crack. This flying object was made up of 2 silver rings, an inner ring and an outer ring. Its surface was extremely smooth and streamlined. Under the illumination of the light, it glistened like a perfect work of art. Unlin and the others were a little dumbstruck by the sight of this flying object. What's this? Why did this thing appear? Holy F***ck. Could it be that we have to fight aliens for the final node? Lu Qianhuan couldn't help but yell. Unlin, although he really didn't want to associate this flying object with aliens, this technologically advanced flying object was far too inferior to an immortal's magic tool. Just as he was hesitating, a dazzling arc of lightning circled around the flying object before converging in the air in front of them. Be careful! Unlin's hair stood on end as he yelled. He instantly raised his black brick in front of everyone and expanded it in size. Boom! Tang Shimin was caught off guard and had only just raised his head when he saw a blinding pillar of lightning erupt from the flying object before instantly striking the black brick in front of everyone. The terrifying explosion of lightning pulverized everything in its path, tearing through the earth and reducing the surrounding vegetation to dust. When everyone came to their senses, a massive crater had been blasted into the ground in front of the black brick by the energy cannon. Who would have thought that it really would be aliens? They even have such a high-tech flying object. Unlin pursed his lips and was a little speechless. He did not sense any fluctuation of yuan qi from the attack just now. It was obvious that it was a pure physical energy attack. Gundam 1, Gundam 2, blast that drone down. After confirming the enemy, Unlin no longer held back and took the initiative to counterattack. Arcs of lightning flashed around Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 upon receiving the command, and they stepped forward, transforming into 2 streaks of white light that flew through the air at extreme speed. At that moment, a gap opened up in the ring-shaped flying object, and 2 figures in black armor leaped out of the gap. Whoosh! A figure charged toward Gundam 1 and Gundam 2, and a fist that glowed with a metallic luster crashed into the Gundam's particle sword. Boom! A circular wave of air swept out in all directions, and the extremely sharp particle swords actually stopped on the surface of the fist, unable to advance any further. At this moment, the other Gundam had already aimed its cannon at the figure, and the super ion electromagnetic gun suddenly fired. Lightning flashed, and the super ion electromagnetic gun, which was imbued with immense kinetic energy, tore through the air and instantly reached the figure's head. Another earth-shattering screech sounded as a gray energy barrier formed around the figure's black armor, keeping the shockingly powerful cannon blast at bay. Rainbow-splitting realm. A powerful roar sounded as the black armor glowed with a dazzling light. Immediately afterward, several rainbow-colored streaks of light rose up from behind the figure before sweeping toward the 2 Gundams with terrifying power. Isn't this rainbow-splitting realm a technique of battle god Jinhong? And this surging battle chi? There's no mistaking it. Battle God Zi Yang's heart trembled as he looked up at the scene in the sky. Battle God Zhen Hong? He's the first battle god of the Bei Hong Empire, right? Su Xiaolan had seen this name in history books before, and her expression also shifted slightly. The history books say that he disappeared 7,000 years ago. Could it be? Everyone looked up at the figure in the black armor in the sky with more and more questions in their minds. They had initially thought that this figure was a technological puppet like the two Gundams. After all, its exterior was completely sealed off, and it looked like a thickly painted version of the two Gundams. But now, it looked like the figure in the armor was most likely a battle god. Why was battle god Zhen Hong here? How did he come to possess such high-tech creations? Why was he the third enemy of the 10 Realm Guardian tribes? The two Gundams were blasted to the ground by several rainbow-colored streaks of light. Right at this moment, another figure in black armor flew toward Enlin and the others as a peerlessly powerful aura burst forth from its body. The black armor spread open its hand, and the sky suddenly darkened as battle chi surged violently. Within a few seconds, a black saber projection over a kilometer in length appeared in the sky, and it descended upon Enlin and the others with boundless sharpness and destructive power. That's Battle God Tian Dao's signature technique, Dark Sky Slash. Battle God Ziyang exclaimed in shock. Don't just stand there and be amazed, can't you do something? Bai Qiong flew into the sky with a green imperial robe draped over her shoulders. An azure sword projection materialized in her hand as she flew toward the black saber projection. Boom! The collision of the two battle gods caused the entire sky to be dyed black and green. Battle God Tian Dao, the second battle god of the Ao-Xian Empire. He's also one of the missing battle gods, Su Xiaolan explained. It looks like all the missing battle gods have come here. Xianyuan Cheng was shocked as he looked up at the earth-shattering battle in the sky. This kind of momentum, this kind of power. So battle gods were this terrifying when they engaged in battle. Enlin looked at battle god Ziyang with a peculiar expression. Senior, you're a battle god just like them, why are you so shocked now? To be honest, Battle Goddess Bai Qiong, Battle God Tian Dao, and Battle God Zhen Hong were all extremely domineering, but Battle God Ziyang was the only one. Why did he feel like something was off? He was a coward and a pervert, and he ate an immortal fruit on the sly. He couldn't be lying, could he? Battle God Ziyang chuckled. Don't try to provoke me. I'm only responsible for protecting Tang Shimin and Tian Lingling. Oh, and now there's White Spirit Snake. Enlin. He then glanced at the two Gundams who were battling Battle God Zhen Hong. They were already on the brink of defeat. Let's go, let's start the battle as well. Enlin finally drew his evil-slaying sword after ascertaining the strength of his enemies. Right at this moment, a white, ring-shaped object slowly descended onto the ground. A black opening appeared, and a bald man jumped out from within. He was wearing a white cloak, a yellow sweatshirt, and a pair of red gloves. He suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Enlin was completely dumbstruck upon seeing this, and an inexplicable sense of fear welled up in his heart. Chapter 350. The rest of the team members also noticed the bald man. Huh? Why isn't he wearing armor? Yao Mingshi asked curiously. Who cares if he's wearing armor or not, he's an enemy. I'll go kill him. Hu Guan clenched his fists and charged forward with a menacing aura. Enlin was given a fright upon seeing Hu Guan's actions and immediately held him back. Don't be rash, Junior Hu. What is it, big brotherin? Hu Guan asked curiously upon seeing Enlin's nervous expression. Enlin took a deep breath. If you charge forward so recklessly, I'm afraid you won't be able to withstand a single punch. Xianyuan Cheng nodded in agreement. Student Enlin is right. We should be more cautious when facing enemies of unknown origins and unknown background. Let me go test them out. After saying that, he pulled out his ancient sword and walked towards the bald man with a vigilant expression. Enlin was given another fright and immediately pulled Xianyuan Cheng out of the way. Xianyuan Qing. And Lin swallowed. That person's attire is very strange. I'm a little afraid that none of us will be able to withstand a single punch from him. Let's let Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 go test them out. Yao Mingxi, Hu Guan, and White Spirit Snake stared at Lin with wide eyes as if they had seen something inconceivable. This was the first time they had seen Big Brother and act so cowardly. Lu Qianhuan stroked her chin as she stared at the strange bald man. I can't shake the feeling that this man looks familiar, she murmured to herself. And Lin turned toward Lu Qianhuan as if he had found a soulmate. One Punch Man, it's him. Lu Qianhuan clapped her hands together as her purple eyes glowed with excitement. He's Teacher Saitama, the one who killed a boss with a single punch. All of the team members were shocked upon hearing this. Saitama? He killed a boss with a single punch? He's that powerful? Hi. Teacher Saitama, I'm Sorceress Lux. Lu Qianhuan greeted the bald man excitedly with a vibrant smile. It was as if two people who loved to role-play had met in the vast world. This was all fate. When the bald man saw an extremely beautiful woman waving at him enthusiastically and calling him Teacher Saitama, he couldn't help but be stunned on the spot as a warm feeling welled up in his heart. Previously, he had been worrying about what he should do to restore his glorious image after he became bald. Very quickly, he recalled that in the world created by the Empress, there was a bald expert who was extremely domineering. Thus, he decided to imitate him and act out the role. He didn't expect to be recognized as soon as he put on his clothes. As expected, I was born with a kind of domineering aura? The bald man was very happy, but he also knew what his mission was. If he did not complete it well, the next time he would not be playing the role of a bald powerhouse, but a headless horseman. While the man was thinking, a white figure had already appeared above him with its mouth wide open. Rumble! Purple flames fell from the sky. This was the extremely powerful dark purple dragon flames, and it instantly engulfed the bald man, instantly melting the ground beneath it with its terrifying heat. However, just as the Gundam was about to unleash its flames, the bald man had already appeared behind it. And Lin's pupils contracted in shock. So fast! The white cape on the bald man's back danced in the wind, and his red-gloved fist instantly crashed into the Gundam's back at an incredible speed. Boom! A thunderous boom erupted as a white shock wave swept through the air for over a kilometer. Crack! Cracks appeared on the Gundam's silvery white outer armor, and its body turned into a white line as it plummeted to the ground, creating a pitch-black crater. And Lin took a deep breath as a fearful expression appeared on his face. Yao Mingxi, Hu Guan, you two go help Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 against Battle God Jin Hong. Everyone else, come with me to battle that bald man. The speed and power displayed by this bald man were even more powerful than that of Battle God Jin Hong. Yao Mingxi and Hu Guan were slightly weaker, but they knew that this was not a battle that they could participate in, so they immediately flew toward Battle God Jin Hong. And Lin issued an order to Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 through the heart net to stall Battle God Jin Hong as much as possible. He didn't want to kill Battle God Jin Hong as long as he didn't get involved in other battles. The bald man didn't give chase after slamming one of the Gundams into the ground. Instead, he made his way toward Lin and the others with a relaxed smile on his face. Hello everyone, I am the final boss of this trial, Saitama. I've let you guys off easy for so long, so it's time for one or two of you to die. Are you ready? He didn't forget why he had become bald, so he was going to take this opportunity to exact his revenge. As soon as he finished speaking, a dangerous murderous aura began to spread in all directions. And Lin's expression became extremely fearsome as he looked at the bald man. He really did feel like he was about to be punched to death by this bald man. I'll stall Saitama, you guys take this opportunity to attack him. Xianyuan Qing suddenly instructed. Alright, Xianyuan Qing, you'll be the main tank to draw aggro, I'll be the backline DPS, Su Qianyun will be the assassin, Anlin and Su Xiaolan will be the melee DPS. Lu Qianhuan suddenly issued instructions with an excited expression. Everyone, Xian Yuanqing could be trusted to stall Anlin. After all, he was able to hold his own against Wang Xuanzhan of the spirit-nurturing final stage for a short period of time when he was only of the spirit-nurturing initial stage. Now that he was of the spirit-nurturing final stage, he was definitely the most powerful among all of them. However, before Xian Yuanqing even had a chance to attack, a white pillar of energy tore through the earth toward the bald man's face. Whoosh! A series of afterimages flashed past, and the bald man shifted his position at a speed that was difficult for the naked eye to capture. The pillar of energy brushed past him, tearing a trench over 1,000 feet in length into the earth. We missed. Lu Qianhuan blinked her purple eyes in disbelief. It's my turn, the bald man said lightly. In the next instant, the red fist was already upon everyone with an earth-shattering aura. Boom! The earth suddenly began to tremor and crumble amid an earth-shattering boom. An ancient sword stood in front of the red fist, and the projection of a black and white fish revolved on the ground. Oh, interesting. A hint of surprise appeared in the bald man's eyes. He didn't think that someone would be able to completely block his punch. Xian Yuanqing's expression was calm, as if he had entered into some kind of realm. However, the blood trickling from the corner of his mouth indicated that he had already been injured. A sword slash of fire and lightning suddenly attacked the bald man. It was so fast that it reached him instantly. The bald man took a step forward, and his body transformed into a series of afterimages as he retreated over 12 meters, evading the sword projection. The air twisted, and the blue moon rippled in the air soundlessly before appearing behind the bald man. With a sharp edge that seemed capable of harvesting lives, it drew a thin blue line through the air. The bald man threw a punch behind him without hesitation. Boom! A sonic boom erupted like a clap of thunder. The red fist flattened the air, and the blue moon trembled violently under its pressure. It was impossible to describe what kind of power this was. Su Qianyun, who was standing over 1,000 feet away, felt as if her entire body had been struck by a terrifying blow. She was sent flying as she spat out a mouthful of blood. The bald man suddenly felt a gust of cold wind blow toward him from the side. He didn't even avert his gaze as he threw a punch forward. Anlin's inky black sword was only an inch away from the bald man's neck when the terrifying gust of wind had already struck his body, sending him flying several hundred meters in the span of a few breaths. The bald man had thrown 3 punches and injured 3 people. Chapter 351. After the bald man sent Anlin flying, Xian Yuanqing charged toward him again in an attempt to stall him with his myriad spirit Tai Chi Dao. However, Xian Yuanqing felt as if his body had been completely emptied after dispersing the power of the bald man's 2 punches. At this moment, Lu Qianhuan had already flown into the air and waved her 6-feathered staff to materialize a series of semi-transparent beams of energy that rained down upon the bald man like a torrential downpour. After a series of explosions, the bald man walked out from the cloud of dust. His head was still as shiny as ever, and it was especially dazzling as it reflected the sunlight. Holy F***ck. Not only are his agility and strength off the charts, but even his defenses are so powerful. He's using hacks. Lu Qianhuan's eyes widened in astonishment. A sense of foreboding suddenly welled up in her heart, and she retreated with all her might. However, the yellow figure was even faster, and he instantly appeared before her as a merciless fist descended upon her. Lu Qianhuan gritted her teeth as she looked at the fist that was growing larger and larger. She raised her staff in front of her in preparation to defend herself. Right at this moment, a white figure appeared before her, and an ancient sword imbued with the power of myriad spirit Tai Chi struck the fist before deflecting it to the side. The fist pierced through the air and whipped up gale-force winds. It was impossible to completely nullify the power of such a powerful fist. After the fist landed, Xian Yuancheng's body was severely wounded again, and he stumbled back in retreat with an extremely pale face. The bald man knew that Xian Yuancheng was difficult to deal with, so he attacked Xian Yuancheng again. Lu Qianhuan immediately unleashed a prismatic barrier upon Xian Yuancheng. Flying lightning slash. Su Xiaolan wielded her dragon sparrow sword and unleashed a bolt of lightning toward the bald man's right side. Almost at the same time, heaven and earth suddenly fell dark. Enlin appeared on the bald man's left side, and his evil-slaying sword slashed through the air in a lethal, inky black trajectory. Second technique, Shadow Tiger. The bald man's expression darkened as he sensed danger in that instant. Green steel claws. He used his hands as claws, and an extremely dazzling green light burst forth from his left and right hands as he clawed toward different directions. Ka! The crisp sound of an explosion shattered the darkness of heaven and earth. The bald man's right hand clamped tightly onto Su Xiaolan's dragon sparrow sword. Lightning flashed, but he was unable to advance any further. His right hand gripped onto the blade of the evil-slaying sword, and the inky black energy was trapped within his azure claws. However, at this moment, a blazing pillar of energy tore through the air and smashed into the bald man's chest. Boom! The impact of the energy pillar transformed into light and heat that spread in all directions. Immediately after, Enlin and Su Xiaolan felt an extremely powerful force coming from their swords, and then they were sent flying at the same time. Another sonic boom erupted, and the bald man appeared before Lu Qianhuan again. His clothes had already been torn to shreds, revealing his charred chest. "You've successfully injured me. I'll reward you with a punch." The scarlet fist descended like a mountain, giving off a suffocating feeling. Right at this moment, Xian Yuancheng appeared before Lu Qianhuan again. The terrifying power of his fist tore through the clouds and pulverized the mountain in the distance. Xian Yuancheng and Lu Qianhuan both threw up mouthfuls of blood at the same time as they fell to the ground. "Xian Yuancheng, are you all right?" Lu Qianhuan endured her injuries and rushed to Xian Yuancheng's side before picking him up in her arms. There was a panicked expression on her face. "I'm fine, don't worry about me." Xian Yuancheng struggled free from Lu Qianhuan's arms and stood up with gritted teeth. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, "It was all my fault. I didn't hold that man back, and you guys were injured." Lu Qianhuan faltered upon hearing this, and her eyes fell into a daze for a split second. She looked at the figure who was seriously injured but still stood up without any regard for his own safety. Her heart inexplicably trembled. "What am I afraid of? Afraid of picking up that sword? Afraid of remembering the past? They fought with their lives on the line, protecting me without regard for their own safety. But I don't even have the courage to wield my sword in front of everyone. They are my teammates, my true comrades who fight side by side with me." A self-deprecating smile appeared on Lu Qianhuan's face. She was laughing at her own stupidity and cowardice. Boom! Waves of clouds surged through the sky as the bald man shot toward Xian Yuancheng and Lu Qianhuan like a cannonball. It was clear that he harbored a deep grudge against them. In the face of this suffocating aura, Xian Yuancheng stood in front of Lu Qianhuan with a resolute expression as the image of a black and white fish appeared beneath his feet. Perhaps this was the last punch he could block. Even so, he was going to hold on until the very end to create opportunities for his teammates, all the way until the very end. Gotcha! For some reason, Xian Yuancheng suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. At this moment, the bald man had already charged toward him and launched a merciless punch. Frost instantly covered the entire sky. Blue-white streams of air proliferated outward, and the absolute low temperature froze the space around them. Lu Qianhuan stood in front of Xian Yuancheng, and a blue ribbon encircled her snow-white skin. Her figure was tall and straight, and her expression was cold and arrogant. Her purple eyes were disdainful yet calm, as if she were a proud and independent female sword immortal. The bald man was enveloped by the terrifyingly low temperature, and his body actually froze for a moment. However, he quickly used brute force to break free from this freezing space, and the red fist continued its onslaught. Stunning snow! Lu Qianhuan yelled softly as she gripped her great ice sword tightly in her slender hand. She raised her sword toward the sky toward the red fist, and 1,000 snowflakes were instantly swept up. The bald man's fist was powerless as if it had struck cotton, and the extremely cold wind and snow continued to batter his body. Ling Shuang! Lu Qianhuan's sword turned, and her great ice sword pierced toward the bald man's heart. At this moment, the falling snow stopped, and everything fell silent. Only the blade of the sword, which was imbued with the power of extreme frost, sliced through the wind and snow, and pierced toward the enemy's heart. Blood splattered, and snow began to fall. Lu Qianhuan's long sword pierced into the bald man's chest. However, before the tip of the sword could even touch the heart, the blade was already tightly gripped by a large hand, and it was unable to advance any further. Blood flowed down the blade and dripped onto the snowy ground, forming faint red spots that slowly faded away. The bald man's expression finally darkened completely. "Very good, you've injured me again this time. I'll reward you with another punch." His fist fell, and it was as if he could destroy all techniques with his strength alone. The terrifying power of his fist shattered the frost heaven domain. Lu Qianhuan spat out a mouthful of blood, and her body was sent flying into the sky by the fist. The sound of blood churning and bones shattering could also be heard. Xianyuan Cheng had only just felt a glimmer of hope from Lu Qianhuan's exceptional sword technique. However, in the next instant, this hope was once again shattered by the bald man's fist. Such a powerful and unimaginable sword technique was still unable to defeat him. This bald man's strength was truly too ridiculously powerful. The bald man stomped the ground with one foot and charged toward Lu Qianhuan, who was still in the air. Then, he launched another punch. Lu Qianhuan looked at the fist that was imbued with terrifying power, and despair finally welled up in her heart. She knew that she wouldn't be able to block this punch. However, right at this moment, a powerful arm suddenly wrapped around her slender and soft waist, and the arm transformed into a bolt of lightning as it instantly teleported over 1,000 feet away. Boom! The fist lashed out, and it was as if the fist was going to puncture the heavens. The bald man's fist missed. Hee. You've saved the damsel in distress. I'll give you a thumbs up. Lu Qianhuan looked at the handsome profile of the man before her, and a joyful smile appeared on her face. Crimson blood was still stained on her beautiful, fair face, and her smile was both pitiful and moving. Just stay here and shout 666. Watch me perform in the next battle. The man placed Lu Qianhuan onto the ground, and a black aura continued to seep out from his body. He was none other than Enlin, who had already unleashed his origin energy of the netherworld. Chapter 352. The bald man's expression shifted as he stared at Enlin in the distance. This aura was very powerful. Enlin also raised his head to look at the bald man, and his eyes were as black as ink. A black cape instantly materialized on his back, and even his evil-slaying sword was bound by a black ribbon, as if a black cloak had been added to his body. Deathly silence ensued as the aura of death and doom proliferated outward. Enlin stood at the very center of the darkness, as if he were the monarch of the night. His aura was calm and reserved, but it was imbued with absolute power that could make one fall into an eternal slumber. A gust of wind blew past, and Enlin's body had already disappeared. The bald man's expression darkened, and he raised his fist before hurling it forward without any hesitation. At this moment, the black blade of his sword had already arrived before him with peerless might before colliding with his fist. Boom! The two powers clashed, and vital energy surged for over a kilometer as terrifying shock waves exploded forth, destroying everything within a radius of over 1,000 feet. Enlin and the bald man both retreated a few steps at the same time. The bald man's glove had already been sliced open by the blade of his sword, revealing a gash. However, Unlin was completely unscathed as he charged toward the bald man again with his sword in hand. An extremely domineering sword strike collided with the bald man's sword, and the resulting explosion of energy transformed heaven and earth into complete chaos. The bald man was forced into retreat by Unlin's unstoppable sword strike, and a dozen or so wounds soon appeared on his body. In the eyes of the bald man, the black cape on Unlin's back was growing larger and larger, as if it had transformed into a black canopy that obscured the entire sky. Meanwhile, Unlin's sword had become the executor of death and doom in the canopy of the sky, constantly announcing its authority. Xianyuan Cheng and Lu Qianhuan looked up into the sky, where the black cape obscured the sun. Night slowly fell, and Unlin's endless night sword technique had finally reached its peak. That's right, Unlin didn't use the 6 strikes of the war god this time. Instead, he listened to Little Xie's suggestion and used the endless night sword technique that he had just obtained. Su Xiaolan was forced back by a scarlet streak of light. As her black robe fluttered, her gaze had already stopped on the man in the distance. Battle god Zhenhong was far too powerful, and even with the help of the 2 Gundams, Hu Guan and Yao Mingxi were still in grave danger. Hence, Su Xiaolan listened to Unlin's instructions and went to reinforce Hu Guan and the others. Before they parted, Unlin had said that he would definitely defeat the bald man. Seeing Unlin's extremely serious expression, Su Xiaolan believed his words without a doubt. And now, the most crucial moment had finally arrived. The bald man was beaten until his blood boiled. He clenched his fists tightly and his aura soared to the limit. "Brat, don't be too arrogant. Eat my serious punch." The muscles on the bald man's arms suddenly bulged, and Yuan Qi surged for thousands of meters, forming a huge cyclone, and the center of the cyclone was his right fist. He punched out. The red fist seemed to be able to shatter everything, and it grew larger and larger in Unlin's eyes. The power behind the fist was as vast as the sea, and the power behind it was enough to shatter heaven and earth. Unlin's expression became extremely grave. He stood in front of him atop his sword and began to spin at high speed. His black cape transformed into a black canopy that flowed downward like a black river, forming a vortex that sucked in heaven and earth. 99 layers of black vortexes began to appear, and the center of the vortex was so deep that even one's consciousness would not be able to escape. It was like a black hole that could melt and engulf all things, and it flew directly toward the red fist. Boom! The terrifying power of the collision shattered the vortexes layer by layer, and the space around them began to twist and warp. 10 layers, 20 layers, 30 layers, 90 layers. Black cracks imbued with the aura of chaos appeared in the air. This was a sign that the space itself had been torn apart. Unlin's internal organs had already been shattered, and his bones were riddled with cracks. These were extremely lethal wounds, but he showed no hint of fear or retreat. His eyes were as clear as a mirror. In his heart, this was the moment that would decide the outcome of this battle. The evil-slaying sword transformed into a black shadow as it returned to his hand, and a cold voice tinged with excitement sounded. "Unlin, close your eyes." Unlin closed his eyes, and then he saw light. This was a ray of light in his consciousness, a ray of light that tore through the darkness and was peerlessly dazzling. A peerlessly dazzling light burst forth from the evil-slaying sword, as if it were welcoming the dawn of night, as if it were extinguishing all hope. The black sky was torn apart by the white light, and Unlin's cloak and the black ribbon on the evil-slaying sword both disappeared. The white sword projection soared into the sky, as if it had been repressed for a long time and had finally been released, and it released all of its energy in a frenzy. Final technique, endless night dawn. The bald man stared at the white sword projection. It tore through the darkness and tore through heaven and earth, becoming the only color in this world. It was powerful, dazzling, and filled with hope. Regardless of whether it was the enemies or his teammates, all of them involuntarily turned to look at the sword projection as their hearts trembled with emotion. The bald man's chest had already been punctured by the white sword projection, and a mist of blood sprayed through the air as his body plummeted to the ground. Enlin also plummeted toward the ground in exhaustion. His body had been completely hollowed out, and the after effects of using the origin energy of the netherworld for an extended period of time were not as simple as just exhaustion. Instead, they could even affect his Tao foundation. A warm arm wrapped around his body, and he forced his eyes open to find Xianyuan Cheng's handsome face that was filled with concern. "Classmate Enlin, are you all right?" "I'm fine." Enlin shook his head feebly, but to his surprise, his blood churned, and he coughed up another mouthful of blood. That's right, not only had his body been hollowed out, but all of his organs had almost been crippled by that punch. The evil-slaying sword let loose a cry of satisfaction before hiding back into its storage ring, completely disregarding its master's pitiful condition. Xianyuan Cheng placed Enlin and Lu Qianhuan together, and fed each of them a healing spirit pill. In reality, he himself was also severely injured, but he could still just barely stand. Just when Enlin thought that he could finally relax after defeating the fake Saitama, a voice suddenly rang out. He shuddered as a boundless chill ran down his spine. Cough, cough. I've underestimated you guys. A bald figure slowly crawled out from the rubble. His bald head was stained with blood, but it was still extremely eye-catching under the bright sunlight. He gripped the bleeding wound on his chest as he made his way toward Enlin and the others with raging battle intent burning in his eyes. Your combat prowess has already far exceeded my expectations, but you're still a little short of being able to defeat me. A smile appeared on the bald man's face as he spoke. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Are you excited? He clenched his fists tightly as he continued onward. He was going to kill all three of them in critical condition. He drew closer and closer to Enlin and the others, and he was like a ferocious ancient fiend celestial that was about to bare its fangs. Right at this moment, a faint ripple suddenly appeared in the air. A blue arc of light flashed past the bald man's back like a goose gliding over the surface of the water. Very fast. It was very unexpected. Just when the bald man was at his weakest and most emotionally unstable, the Grim Reaper's scythe fell lightly. The bald man's eyes widened as he stared at the wound on his neck. There was an expression of incredulity on his face. Enlin, Lu Qianhuan, and the others all drew a sharp intake of breath as they stared at the blue figure in the distance. Beautifully done. Perfect. Enlin, who was on the verge of death, sat up in shock. This is the role of assassins in team battles. Lu Qianhuan's purple eyes lit up as a vibrant smile appeared on her face. In the distance, the blue moonlight disk danced merrily around Su Qianyun, as if it was taking credit. Su Qianyun wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and smiled happily at Enlin and the others. There were two faint dimples on her delicate face, and she was extremely adorable. Chapter 353. Enlin couldn't help but sigh with emotion at the sight of the bald man's lifeless eyes and lifeless body as he stood rooted to the spot. This most difficult battle had finally come to an end. He had used all of his trump cards and had almost sacrificed his life to defeat the bald man. This was a hard-won victory. Teacher Saitama was indeed worthy of his reputation. Furthermore, he wasn't even the real Saitama. He was just a cosplay character, but he was already so bad *SS immediately afterward. Enlin saw the bald man transform into specks of golden light before disappearing from heaven and earth. As expected of a boss. Even the way he exited the battle after his death was so cool. Enlin couldn't help but sigh with emotion upon seeing this. Then, he saw the specks of golden light slowly converge to form the bald man again. There were still countless wounds on his body, but the fatal wound on his neck had disappeared. The bald man looked around and scratched his bald head in confusion. Didn't I just die? He suddenly asked. Enlin, Su Qianyun, Xianyuan Cheng, that's right, you're already dead. Hurry up and lie down. Lu Qianhuan's heart was weak, and she was scared witless by the bald man's mysterious resurrection technique. At this moment, a pleasant female voice suddenly sounded in the sky. You're already dead. Please bring the sky wheel flying boat back. The bald man slapped his forehead as he came to a sudden realization. He looked at Enlin and the others with a complex expression. Then, he ran over to the silver flying object, opened the cabin door, and jumped in. Enlin and the others. Then, under everyone's gaze, the silver ring flying object soared into the sky and flew into the crack in the sky. Sigh, what a series of twists and turns! Xianyuan Cheng's legs gave out as he collapsed onto the ground. He felt like he was suffering from a nervous breakdown from all of these twists and turns. Enlin lay on the ground like a dead fish, and he didn't want to move at all. Then, he felt his old waist being poked by someone. He turned around to find Lu Qianhuan pointing a finger in a certain direction while winking at him incessantly. Enlin looked over to where Battle Emperor Tiandao was fighting. What is it? He didn't understand Lu Qianhuan's intentions. Hey, are you a man or not? Can't you focus on the main point? Lu Qianhuan glared at Enlin. Men? The main point? Enlin blinked as he looked toward the peerlessly beautiful and domineering Battle Goddess Bai Qiong. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong lived up to her reputation as the most powerful being on the Zhanqi continent. Even though Battle God Tiandao had the black biological armor to enhance his battle prowess, she was still able to continuously grind him into the ground. However, this was not the main point. The important thing was that Battle Goddess Bai Qiong was currently in her human form, and her green imperial robe resembled a qipao. Not only did it accentuate her perfect figure, but it also had a high slit. As her imperial robe fluttered in the wind during battle, her long, slender, and supple legs could be seen. Enlin swallowed. He was currently lying on the ground while Battle Goddess Bai Qiong and Battle God Tiandao were battling in the sky. This way he could see everything from the sky. He looked at Lu Qianhuan gratefully. Lu Qianhuan nodded with a gratified expression. Sometimes it's important to have a pair of eyes that are good at spotting beauty. She pulled out her phone and started playing with it as she spoke. Su Qianyun walked over to Enlin and the others to protect them from the shock waves of the battle in the distance. She was the one with the least injuries among the four of them, but even so, her entire body still felt like it was about to fall apart. Every movement she made caused her to grit her teeth in pain. The battle was coming to an end, and the situation was starting to become clear. Battle God Zhenhong was far too powerful. Even with the addition of Su Xiaolan, he still held a clear advantage. Furthermore, if it weren't for the fact that Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 fought with all their might, Hu Guan and Yao Mingxi would have most likely been buried in the ground already. After that, Battle God Ziyang joined the battle and began to turn the tables. Battle God Zhenhong fell into a disadvantageous position. This was the first time Enlin had seen Battle God Ziyang fight seriously. One earth-shattering flame technique after another was unleashed from his hands in an extremely domineering manner. It had to be said, this battle had successfully reversed his image as a battle god. Boom! A green divine sword fell and sliced Battle God Tiandao's armor and body in half. Battle God Tiandao's aura dissipated, and his body disappeared into specks of golden light. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong elegantly sheathed her sword and glanced in Enlin's direction with a seemingly unintentional expression. Enlin immediately turned his gaze toward Su Xiaolan with a sincere and solemn expression. However, he was still sighing in his heart. Why didn't Battle Goddess Bai Qiong last a little longer? At this moment, Battle God Zhenhong was already showing signs of being defeated. After he dodged Yao Mingxi's sword strike, the two Gundams had already unleashed a powerful force field trapping formation at the same time. The powerful trapping formation caused Battle God Jin Hong's movements to falter momentarily. If he faltered in the middle of a group battle, then he would have to face a torrential barrage of attacks. Hu Guan's sunrise wind fist flew toward him, Su Xiaolan's sword slashed out a golden arc, and Battle God Zi Yang's true flames of judgment descended from the sky. At this moment, the sky was once again illuminated by the explosions of spell techniques. Lin looked at the black figure falling from the sky, as well as Su Xiaolan and the others who were still chasing after him. He knew that the outcome had been decided and that Battle God Jin Hong wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. In less than 15 minutes, Battle God Jin Hong's heart was punctured by Zi Yang's crimson spear of true flames, and his head was severed by Su Xiaolan's flying lightning slash. Congratulations, Realm Guardian Trial, Purple Star Chapter has been successfully completed. A voice sounded from the sky, indicating that Lin and the others had finally completed the trial. Everyone's heart jolted upon hearing the words, Purple Star. No wonder there were these spaceships and suits of armor. They were representatives of the Purple Star civilization. That made sense. But how could they be enemies of the 10 Realm Guardian tribes? A projection was projected down from the sky, and everyone's contribution points for this trial were displayed. Lin, 18,500 points. Lu Qinhuan, 12,200 points. Su Qinyun, 9,000 points. Su Xiaolan, 8,300 points. Xian Yuanqing, 7,200 points. Yao Mingxi, 1,100 points. Hu Guan, 900 points. Tian Lingling, 100 points. White Spirit Snake, 0 points. Tang Shiman, 0 points. Lin had initially thought that Su Qianyun would have the highest score after killing her. Who would have thought that she would only be ranked 3rd, while he was ranked 1st? It looked like this judge was quite fair. Tian Lingling was extremely excited upon seeing the score. She had only thrown a few talismans at Battle God Jin Hong, and she had only mustered up the courage to join in the fun when Battle God Jin Hong was on the brink of death. Who would have thought that she would get 100 points like that? What a pleasant surprise! Seeing that White Spirit Snake had gotten a 0, the little green snake rubbed her little head against her arm in consolation. I'm fine, little Qing. I'm not in last place anyway, there's still someone to accompany me. White Spirit Snake glanced at Tang Shiman and patted her little head with a reassuring expression. Tang Shiman felt like he had been stabbed in the heart again. How the F***ck could he get stabbed even though he was lying down? A child's words carried no harm. Another spatial gate opened up, and the white clouds converged to form a staircase, as if it were a path to the heavens. All of the team members looked up at the gate with anxiety and anticipation in their hearts. The final segment was finally here. Chapter 354. All of the team members rested on the spot and prepared to advance to the final spatial gate after they had recovered. Within a certain dark space, a black-haired woman sat on a chair with her snake tail coiled around her body. She looked at Lin and the others with a smile on her face. The bald man stood beside her with a respectful expression. After the seal on his body was lifted, the horrifying wounds on his body healed automatically by relying on his powerful self-healing ability. Even though he still had quite a few internal injuries, they didn't pose much of a hindrance to his movement. What a bunch of powerful people! None of the trial takers from the Celestial Court are ordinary. Black Spirit Snake had already watched the entire battle, and she was even the one who judged the battle contribution point. Hence, she was very generous in her praise of all of the team members. If we didn't beat them up during the trial, we wouldn't have been able to gauge their strength. It looks like such outstanding team members are worthy of Celestial Immortal Shou Yang's inheritance. Black Spirit Snake continued. The bald man nodded. Their aptitude, cultivation methods, willpower, and Tao are all top-notch. Especially those 5. If we hadn't fought them head-on, I wouldn't have believed that they would be able to unleash such power. Black Spirit Snake chuckled lightly. An exceptional sword immortal candidate with the ancient sword Tao physique, a true disciple of the Tao of myriad spirit Tai Chi, an extraordinary woman with the combined bloodlines of the dragon and phoenix, a moon palace disciple with the true Yin physique, and a man with hacks. It's only reasonable that they were able to defeat you. The bald man's heart jolted upon hearing this. He didn't think that Black Spirit Snake would know these 5 people so well. But what did she mean by a man with hacks? He thought back to the terrifying endless night sword techniques that Enlin had unleashed upon him with a black aura emanating from his body. Now, he felt like Enlin really was using hacks. He couldn't afford to mess with him. Shou Yang has worked with us for a while now, so let's complete this final step. Black Spirit Snake's fingers quickly moved across the screen, and one treasure after another, as well as cultivation methods, techniques, and other inheritances, were transferred to a certain space. The bald man looked at the treasures and swallowed a mouthful of saliva with envy. 1 hour later, all the team members had finished resting. As for those who were more seriously injured, they were naturally lying down. Xianyuan Cheng took out a carpet magic treasure. It was soft and warm. It was very comfortable and could accommodate many people. Tang Shimin burst into tears upon seeing this. Damn it, why didn't they take out such a good thing before? Don't you know that it's very hard and uncomfortable to lie on Enlin's black brick? Thus, the paralyzed trio, Enlin, Lu Qianhuan, and Tang Shimin, lay down on the soft flying carpet with blissful expressions. Even the severely injured Su Qianyun and Xianyuan Cheng decided to lie down on the flying carpet. He had no choice. His injuries were too severe. He really didn't want to move. Su Xiaolan, Hu Guan, and Yao Mingxi were only lightly injured, so they didn't have that thought. Enlin couldn't help but sigh upon seeing this. They had suffered heavy casualties during this trial. Aside from the 2 salted fish, there were 5 severely injured and 3 lightly injured. If it weren't for the fact that they fought with their lives on the line, perhaps their entire team would have been wiped out. The flying carpet carried the 5 of them slowly toward the spatial gate. Enlin was thinking that if he didn't obtain some good treasures this time, then it would be a waste of everyone's efforts. After passing through a vast expanse of white, a circular white sacrificial altar appeared before everyone's eyes. A 30 feet tall statue of a man stood at the center of the sacrificial altar. This man had a solemn expression, and he held the juk sword in his hand. He looked into the distance with a resolute expression. Enlin immediately knew who this man was after seeing this statue. This was celestial immortal Shou Yang. He looked around in search of something, but there was nothing around him. He was a little disappointed. Right at this moment, another screen of light descended from the sky. This screen displayed everyone's scores. Enlin, 33,100 point. Xianyuan Cheng, 15,400 point. Lu Qianhuan, 14,800 point. Su Qianyun, 12,450 point. Su Xiaolan, 12,430 point. Yao Mingxi, 2,720 point. Hu Guan, 2,150 point. Tian Lingling, 220 point. White Spirit Snake, 130 point. Tang Shimin, 0 points. This was clearly the total score of the 3 Realm Guardian trials combined. Enlin was elated upon seeing his highest score. Everyone else didn't have much of a reaction upon seeing their scores. It was more or less what they had expected. Only Tang Shimin felt a little depressed. He suddenly felt like he was too old to eat anymore. Moments later, a second screen of light descended from the sky. Everyone drew a sharp intake of breath upon seeing this screen of light. There were all types of treasures, cultivation methods, and inheritances displayed on the screen. There were also corresponding points and contribution points, which were clearly the requirements for exchange. There was also a note at the bottom right corner. Each item can only be exchanged once. First come, first serve. When the team members saw the items on the screen, their breathing became rapid. There were many treasures, and there were even 2 immortal tools. Heavenly Ice Silkworm Holy Robe, Elementary Rank Immortal Tool. It was crafted from the divine silk of the heavenly ice silkworm that spins once every 10,000 years. The robe can fuse with the wearer's skin and activate an extremely powerful defensive effect in the face of a lethal attack. Required: 14,000 contribution point. Immortal Sealing Gloves, Elementary Rank Immortal Tool. It was crafted from the holy heavenly crystal of the holy paradise. It can enhance the wearer's power upon wearing it. Furthermore, it can store energy within the glove for a one-time burst. It can also unleash an immortal sealing spell technique unique to the glove. Required: 15,000 contribution point. Lin had to admit that he was really tempted by these two items. Even though he had a pinnacle immortal tool, the evil slaying sword, and a useless immortal tool, the realm-piercing nail, who would complain about having too many immortal tools? The more the better. He had enough contribution points to buy both of these immortal tools. With this in mind, he couldn't help but turn his gaze toward Xianyuan Qing and Lu Qianhuan. Xianyuan Qing had 15,400 contribution points, while Lu Qianhuan had 14870. Only the two of them had enough contribution points to exchange for immortal tools. Lu Qianhuan's attention was not on the immortal tools. Instead, she had her eyes locked onto Celestial Immortal Shou Yang's trump card mystic technique, the Mist Immortal Technique. After mastering the Mist Immortal Technique, one's body can transform into clouds and mist and travel for over 500 kilometers. It can also be used in battle as well as in both offense and defense. This was Celestial Immortal Shou Yang's exclusive mystic technique. Required: 13,000 contribution points. All of the other team members also found their own treasures. The amount of contribution points needed to exchange for a spiritual weapon was 500 to 6,000 points. There were spirit pills and immortal pills. Spirit pills could be exchanged for 20 to 700 contribution points. There were 5 immortal pills, all of which were worth at least 1,000 contribution points. What was worth mentioning was that they could be exchanged for spirit stones. 1 contribution point could be exchanged for 200 spirit stones. Based on this ratio, Lin could exchange for over 6 million spirit stones. He would become rich overnight. Tian Lingling, who lived on Earth, was completely rooted to the spot at the sight of so many spirit stones. She counted on her fingers. If she exchanged all of her 220 contribution points for spirit stones, she would have 44,000 spirit stones. Holy **T. So many. Tian Lingling stood rooted to the spot, drooling. There was only a total of 7 million spirit stones available, so there was no need to worry about someone taking all of them. Everyone was immersed in the dazzling array of treasures, and all of them were smiling foolishly. Lin wasn't in a hurry to buy anything. He flipped through the items one by one. Soon, he saw something, and his eyes widened as his breathing accelerated. Heart of the Divine God, Celestial Immortal Shou Yang's inherited divine-level mental projection. 1 chance to come into contact with it. 8,000 contribution points per attempt. If it accepts you as its master, you will receive an additional Divine God's elixir. Chapter 355. Lin stared at the item on the projection with excitement welling up in his heart. The heart of the Divine God and the Divine God's elixir. He had chosen to come to the Shou Yang tomb for these 2 items, and he didn't think that they would actually exist here. If he could gather all of them, he would be able to progress to the soul formation stage. Wow, it's the heart of the Divine God! Su Xiaolan also let loose a cry of surprise upon seeing the item on the projection. Lin was a little flustered upon hearing this. Xiaolan, do you want the heart of the Divine God as well? Su Xiaolan chuckled with her hand over her mouth. That's the heart of the Divine God we're talking about. Not only is it extremely beneficial to one's cultivation method, cultivation base, and true intent, it can also greatly enhance the power of one's consciousness. Who wouldn't want something like that? Well, And Lin was just thinking about how he was going to broach the subject with Su Xiaolan upon hearing this. To his surprise, Su Xiaolan suddenly changed the subject. However, I heard that it's very difficult to make the heart of the divine god acknowledge you as its owner, and it'll have to depend on fate. It's 8,000 contribution points. I'd be very distressed if I lost them all. I don't want to take that risk. And Lin's mouth gaped open, but he was finally able to relax a little at the sight of the serious expression on Su Xiaolan's face. Su Xiaolan had also noticed Lin's expression, and a smile appeared on her face. Why? You're interested in the heart of the divine god as well? And Lin nodded. That's right, I'm going to give it a try. Sigh, it's so nice to have so much money. I can spend it as I please. Unlike me, I'm still struggling to decide what to buy. Su Xiaolan waved a hand before continuing to choose what she liked. And Lin had come here for the heart of the divine god, so it was naturally his top priority. He immediately used his 8,000 contribution points to exchange for an opportunity to interact with the heart of the divine god. After making the exchange, a jade talisman suddenly fell from the sky and landed in Lin's hand. At the same time, the ground suddenly tremored, and an underground entrance appeared beside the statue of celestial immortal Shou-Yang, upon which a restrictive light barrier appeared. This change alarmed everyone. Student and Lin, you're going to try and obtain the heart of the divine god. Xian Yuan Cheng exclaimed. As expected of Big Brother An. How daring! Yao Mingxi exclaimed as he stared at Lin with a fanatical expression. Su Xiaolan looked at the restriction at the entrance of the passageway with furrowed brows, and a concerned expression appeared on her face as she asked, Is the heart of the divine god inside the passageway? This restriction prevents outsiders from entering. Will you be in danger? And Lin also noticed this situation, and there was a more realistic problem. He was now in a state of near paralysis, unable to move freely. Who could help carry him in? He glanced at Xian Yuan Cheng. Big Brother Cheng. Before Lin could finish, Xian Yuan Cheng nodded and said, I understand. Soon after, Lin saw a part of the big flying carpet suddenly split off and flew Lin toward the entrance of the underground tunnel. Splat! The flying carpet crashed into the restriction and was flattened. Meanwhile, Lin was able to pass through the restriction due to inertia and tumbled onto the ground. Ouch! It hurt so much. Not only was he completely exhausted, but all of his muscles, bones, and meridians had also been severely injured. Now that he had tumbled onto the ground, he was in excruciating pain. Student and Lin, are you all right? I can't control the flying carpet to enter the restriction with my intent. Xian Yuan Cheng's urgent voice sounded from outside. I'm fine. I can rely on myself from now on, don't worry. Lin replied in a loud voice. Even though that was what he said, he knew that this was not going to be an easy task. Lin was struck by a sense of suffocation and despair as he looked down at the winding staircase and the flashing flames within the passageway. F***ck, couldn't they just release the heart of the divine god in a simpler way? The problem was, how was he supposed to go down? He couldn't use any spell techniques, and he couldn't even stand. He couldn't go down on his own, so he had to rely on external forces. As he looked down the staircase, he suddenly thought of using gravity. Could it be that he had to roll down? Lin's lips twitched. If he really did roll down using gravity, he would probably be rolling to his death by the time he reached the bottom, right? Wait, external forces. Holy F***ck. I have Gundams. Lin came to a sudden realization. He only had to issue a command to control the two Gundams with his intent, so this was a piece of cake for him. Thus, Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 were released from his storage ring. They then carried their master in an extremely gentle manner before making their way toward the end of the passageway. Lin was propped up by the Gundams on his left and right and supported by his back, making him look like a master as he slowly made his way forward. After a short while, He arrived at the end of the passageway, where there was a spacious stone chamber. At the center of the chamber was a white jade coffin, and there were a few stone pillars with mysterious symbols carved onto them. What excited him the most was that there was a ball of pure white light hovering directly above the coffin. There was a ring of white water flowing around the coffin. The heart of the divine god and the divine god's elixir. Enlin's breathing accelerated as he stared at the scene before him in a daze. Right at this moment, the ball of white light flew toward Enlin of its own volition, immediately following which a scintillating light erupted. Enlin felt a burst of white light enshroud his entire body, and his consciousness was transported to an unfamiliar space. This was a vast expanse of land with no end in sight. The sky was murky gray, the ground was black, and the space was deathly still. There were no signs of life in this place. Aside from the sky and the earth, there was nothing else. Enlin continued to traverse this vast expanse of land. He didn't know how to get out of this place, and the only thing he could do was to continue onward, hoping to see something different. After walking for what seemed like an eternity, 1 year, 2 years, 100 years, he felt very lonely. In this place, he felt that being alive was no different from being dead. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Do you desire life? Do you want companionship? Life? Companionship? Without any hesitation, he made his choice. Just like that, a very beautiful baby boy appeared before him, bawling loudly. Enlin was stunned. Then, his entire body trembled as he picked up the baby. For some reason, he suddenly felt like he had someone to rely on. This baby didn't drink milk, and he was photosynthesizing. After that, there was a long period of companionship. This baby boy slowly grew up, and he learned to speak, learned to read, and learned many other things from Enlin. Big Brotherin, you're so awesome. When can I be as awesome as you? You want to be as awesome as me? Hee, that's impossible. I'm invincible, and you can only be the second best in the world. Why? Because you were created by me. Another long period of time passed. The boy gradually grew up, and he also became more and more powerful. Enlin walked along with him, and his heart was pierced by a black sword blade. He was then greeted by the sight of the boy's sinister yet triumphant smile. Big Brotherin, I've thought about it. If I can devour your power and take everything from you, wouldn't I be as powerful as you? No, I'll be even more powerful than you. The boy looked at Enlin with excitement on his face, and his body trembled with excitement. At this moment, another option appeared in Enlin's mind. A. Kill him. B. Forgive him. Chapter 356. Enlin was rooted to the spot as he stared at the sinister grin on the boy's face. He didn't think that the life he had created, the boy who had always been by his side, would stab a long sword into his heart and try to steal everything from him. His heart ached with pain. He was no saint, so how could he endure something like this? Hence, when Enlin saw the two options, he immediately chose option A. Kill him. Enlin's body slowly disappeared as he looked at the boy with a cold expression. Ah, Big Brotherin, why did you disappear? The boy was also rooted to the spot upon seeing this. He hadn't even begun to absorb the power, and he hadn't even let Big Brotherin witness his growth, so why had he suddenly disappeared? Thus, the boy was the only one left in this vast expanse of heaven and earth. He looked around to find that there was nothing around him. There was only a boundless expanse of black earth and a vast, murky gray sky. The boy stared at the long sword in his hand as his arms trembled uncontrollably. No one spoke to him anymore, and no one taught him anything. The boy suddenly felt as if he had lost his goal and direction. He had been abandoned by Big Brotherin. Or perhaps it was because he had abandoned Big Brotherin first. Did he regret it? The boy looked up at the sky with tears welling up in his eyes, and he was unable to take another step forward. Enlin looked down at the tearful boy from above, and he watched as the boy sat down on the ground, completely at a loss for what to do. After a long while, Loneliness and despair enshrouded the boy. The boy gradually became deranged, and his emotions became unstable. The vital energy within his body was rioting, and his blood turned black. His eyes became crimson, and layers of armor began to form on his skin. He began to transform into the animal that Big Brother had described. His body twisted, and a series of tiny legs sprayed out from his body. His body rapidly swelled, and he transformed into a spider. Not long after that, he transformed into a huge black tiger again, and he began to gallop madly across the land. He transformed into a falcon, and he flew into the murky gray sky, trying to break free from something, trying to prove something. In the end, he fell to the ground in exhaustion. He fell to his death. There was no release even after death. Grief, pain, despair, violence, and distortion, he became a being imbued with boundless negative emotions. His twisted, inky black body wandered over the boundless earth. Unlin's heart trembled when he saw this. It was as if something had finally shed its disguise. As his emotions surged, he felt dizzy. The next moment, he appeared in a room with simple decorations. Some kind of event was being held here, and it was very lively. Unlin was currently lying on a couch with a content expression on his face. He raised his head and looked out the window. It was snowing heavily, and a thick layer of snow covered the ground. In the fireplace in the room, the firewood crackled and burned, enveloping the room in a warm halo. An oval-shaped blue ghost with a pair of white eyes floated to Unlin's side. It carefully poured a pot of hot tea and brought the teacup to Unlin. Unlin picked up the teacup and took a sip with a smile on his face. His eyes narrowed in happiness. There were golden flaming birds and turtles playing in the clouds. There were short stones staring blankly into space. There were also white humanoid creatures decorating a beautiful tree. A small fish and a small dragon were arguing about something. Only a small black man was the most reliable. He was showing off his skills in the kitchen, preparing for tonight's banquet. A little girl with black wings on her back ran over to Unlin and hugged Unlin's calf as she complained, "Big Brother Unlin, the little colorful snake is shameless. She clearly lost a bead to me, but she still hasn't given it to me." Unlin looked at the little girl with her hands on her hips and a reluctant expression on her face. He was also in a dilemma. The little girl pouted aggrievedly, and tears welled up in her big, bright eyes. Clearly, she had bet too much and couldn't bear to part with that good thing. Just as Unlin was scratching his head, there was a knock on the door. He stood up from the couch, opened the door, and was stunned. A little boy was sobbing outside the door, hugging a black longsword. His clothes were tattered, and his nose, cheeks, arms, and feet were red from the extreme cold. There were specks of snow on his messy hair. "Big Brother Unlin, I was wrong, I was really wrong." Tears flowed relentlessly from the little boy's eyes, and his body had stiffened to the point where he forgot to tremble. Only his clear eyes were filled with boundless remorse and fear. Unlin naturally knew this boy. He was the one who had created this boy, and it was this boy who had stabbed him in the end. "Big Brother Unlin, please forgive me. I'll never do that kind of thing again." The boy knelt in the snow and begged bitterly. Unlin could tell that the boy's grief and remorse couldn't be fake. But should he forgive him just because he admitted his mistake? In the room, the sound of playing did not stop, and the fire in the fireplace was burning. Everything was so warm and beautiful, it was like a paradise. Outside the room, the merciless cold wind kept howling, and all he could see was the gray sky and the endless snow. Everything was so lonely and hopeless, there was no place for him to go. Unlin stood at the door, as if he was at the border of two worlds, and he was faced with a choice. This boy, should he accept him, or abandon him? Speaking from the bottom of his heart, Unlin really liked this boy. The two of them had been together for a long time. At that time, the boy was so cute, so pure, like a pure land of infinite hope, containing countless possibilities. But because he liked him so much, when he faced the boy's betrayal, his heart hurt so much. The boy's head was already lowered, and he hugged his only black sword. He knelt in the bone-chilling snow, and his body curled up like a hedgehog. And Lin didn't move, and the boy didn't move either. The goose feather-like snowflakes continued to fall, covering the boy's head and covering his thin and frail body. The door didn't close, after an indeterminate amount of time. And Lin didn't know what kind of emotion he was feeling, but he walked out of the door and slowly extended a hand toward the boy's head, pushing the snow away from his body before hugging him tightly. Cold and warmth intertwined in that instant within a vast expanse of chaos and darkness. And Lin felt as if he had just woken up from a very long dream, and when he woke up there were tear stains on his face. He wiped the tears from his face before looking around with a confused expression at the stone walls, stone pillars, coffins. Oh, that's right. I was touching the heart of the divine God. Thank God there was no one around. Otherwise, it would be far too embarrassing if a man like him were to be seen crying. He couldn't understand why he would have such a strange dream after touching the heart of the divine God. What did that dream represent? What did those choices represent? And Lin's heart became extremely heavy at the thought of that boy. He had a guess in his heart, but he really didn't want to think in that direction. Right at this moment, the white ball of light and the white river suddenly began to move. They rushed into his body at the same time and began to fuse together. Chapter 357. The heart of the divine God and divine God's elixir suddenly threw themselves into his arms, and Lin's mind went blank again. His Dantian's qi had actually doubled after being infused with the deity's water. One had to know that his Dantian's sea of qi no longer had any expansion effect when he meditated and breathed in and out the heaven and earth essence qi. But now, because of the impact of the deity-level energy body, it was able to double in size. What kind of terrifying power was this? The divine God's heart fused with Lin's heart, and under the effect of the divine-level mental projection, his divine soul's power skyrocketed. Whether it was the purity of his soul or the size of his soul, both had been enhanced by more than 30%. The most direct effect that the strengthening of the divine soul brought to Lin was that his perception of the surrounding environment had become much more sensitive. Everything around him had become exceptionally clear. At the same time, the Mist Immortal art and the Shou-Yang True Dragon art, the two most important legacies of Shou-Yang Celestial Immortal, began to flow into Lin's mind. Cultivation method, circulation heart sutra, true meaning, concept comprehension. When Lin opened his eyes again, he was grinning from ear to ear. The ecstasy in his heart could not be concealed. This time, he had profited greatly. Qi, divine soul, cultivation technique. He had profited in every way. The Mist Immortal art was a secret art unique to Celestial Immortal Shou-Yang. If one wanted to purchase it in the outside world, they would have to pay 13,000 contribution points. The Shou-Yang True Dragon art allowed one to borrow the power of the sun, allowing one to burst forth with immense strength for a short period of time. It cost 9,000 contribution points to exchange for it outside. These were all magical techniques that had been inscribed in Celestial Immortal Shou-Yang's heart of the Heavenly God, and they were no different from the inheritances outside. Therefore, he spent 8,000 points to get so many things. It was really a profit. He had already finished absorbing the heart of the Divine God and the Divine God's elixir. Now, all he had to do was consume the reincarnation ginseng that had given birth to a god, and he would be able to advance to the soul formation stage. And Lin thought for a long time, but still suppressed that impulse. He still had an important matter to attend to, and it wouldn't be too late for him to advance to the soul formation stage after that. He bowed with great difficulty towards Celestial Immortal Shou-Yang, who was lying in the coffin, and then commanded Gundam 1 and Gundam 2 to carry him out of the underground tomb. And Lin passed through the light screen of the underground tunnel and reappeared outside. Seeing that his team members were still excitedly buying all kinds of things, he let out a sigh of relief. The dream he had before was too strange. It was a very long dream. He was afraid that by the time he came out, decades or even centuries had passed in the outside world. If that was the case, how could he still play? Unlin, did you succeed? As soon as Unlin came out, a group of team members curiously gathered around and asked about the result. Unlin smiled faintly. When I went in, I never thought that I would fail. Wow. Cool. So you've already absorbed the heart of the Divine God and the Divine God's elixir? Lu Qianhuan's eyes lit up with excitement. Naturally. I also obtained the Mist Immortal technique and the Shou Yang True Dragon art, Unlin said smugly. He wouldn't hide such things from his friends. After all, he still had to act tough. Sure enough, Lu Qianhuan almost jumped off her flying carpet upon hearing this. Holy F***ck. I spent 13,000 contribution points on the Mist Immortal technique, and you have it as well? Her cherry lips gaped open slightly as she stared at Unlin with a mixture of shock and jealousy in her eyes. Unlin waved a hand with a nonchalant expression. It's nothing. These are all unexpected surprises, so I don't really care. Lu Qianhuan wanted to beat someone up upon hearing this. Su Qianyun also pouted with an aggrieved expression. I spent most of my contribution points on the Shou Yang True Dragon art, and I thought it was the only one. I didn't think that classmate Unlin would also have it. Big brother and you're the best. I knew you could do it. Yao Mingxi and Hu Guan yelled excitedly. All of the team members turned to look at Unlin with envy in their eyes. This was the gaze of someone who had won in life. After bragging for a while, Unlin turned his attention back to the projection of the items he could exchange for. The elementary rank immortal tool, the immortal sealing gloves, had already been purchased by Big Brother Ching for 15,000 contribution points, and the remaining 400 points had all been exchanged for spirit pills. As for the elementary rank immortal tool, the heavenly ice silk robe, no one had bought it yet, mainly because no one could afford it anymore. Unlin purchased this elementary rank immortal tool, the heavenly ice silk robe, in order to further develop the Shou Yang celestial immortal's inheritance. After spending 14,000 contribution points, a light blue transparent robe appeared in Unlin's hands. It was as thin as a cicada's wing, and it was imbued with a hint of coldness. Unlin immediately asked the two Gundams to help him put on this protective immortal tool. The heavenly ice silk robe quickly melted into his skin after sticking close to his body. Ah, this feels good. Unlin felt a sense of comfort wash over his entire body. Not only could this robe protect him during critical moments, but it could also nourish his body during normal times. Right now, Unlin only had 100 contribution points left, so he could still buy a lot of good stuff. As for the cultivation methods, they had pretty much all been bought by his teammates. The 5 immortal pills that he had were all snapped up by Su Xiaolan, and she even gave Unlin a green soul immortal pill that could be used to heal physical injuries. This woman was extremely calculative with her contribution points, but she was extremely generous to Unlin, and Unlin was extremely touched. Unlin swallowed the green soul immortal pill that Su Xiaolan had given him. Under the effects of the evergreen technique, the pill's power was absorbed at a high rate, and it quickly healed his meridians and bones that had been damaged during the battle. At this rate, his body would probably be completely healed in 2 days. Unlin also wanted to give something back to Su Xiaolan, but after looking through the remaining items, none of them satisfied him. He was even struck by the urge to exchange his contribution points for spirit stones. Tian Lingling and White Spirit Snake had already exchanged their contribution points for spirit stones. Tian Lingling was currently holding over 40,000 spirit stones in her arms, and she was smiling foolishly off to the side. Those who didn't know better would think that she was an idiot at first glance. Just as everyone was enthusiastically selecting treasures, there was only one place that was cold. Tang Shimin lay silently on the blanket, and for some reason, He felt a lump in his throat as he watched others brandish their newly exchanged magic treasures, practice their newly exchanged cultivation methods, and smile foolishly as they held spirit stones in their arms. The blanket clearly had the effect of maintaining a constant temperature, so why did he still feel a little cold? At this moment, the big boss's blanket was no longer able to warm his heart. Lin also noticed the pitiful senior student Tang lying on the blanket. As the team leader, he felt like he had a duty to help this team member who was in a difficult situation. Senior student Tang, I still have over 10,000 contribution points here. Is there anything that you want? I can buy it for you, Lin asked with a concerned expression as he was carried by the two Gundams to Tang Shiman. Tang Shiman shook his head. Thank you for your kind offer, classmate Lin, but I don't need any of these things. Thus, the short conversation between the biggest winner in life and the biggest loser in life came to an end. Lin spent 5,000 contribution points to exchange for a pinnacle spirit tool, the Chaotic Sky-Crushing Claws. The Chaotic Sky-Crushing Claws had the appearance of a blue, knife-like claw glove. Its name was very flashy, and it was made of very sharp material. It was also very effective against metal-type and wind-type spell technique. This was the present that Lin had decided to buy for Dabai. After all, he had ridden on Dabai for so long, so he had to pay him a service fee. He exchanged all of his remaining 600 and 100 contribution points for spirit stones in one go. Thus, he gained over 1,200,000 spirit stones. In addition to the inventory in his storage ring, he had close to 6 million spirit stones in total, which was quite a huge sum. Lin put away the spirit stones and donned his immortal tool armor before lying down on the flying carpet and basking in the sun. The flying carpet was very warm, very comfortable, and everything was so beautiful. Chapter 358. After a while, the time for exchanging treasures ended, and all of the team members had exchanged for treasures that they were satisfied with. Most of the good stuff on the projection screen had been exchanged. When it sensed that everyone had no more contribution points left, it automatically dissipated. Immediately afterward, a spatial passageway appeared on the white altar like a curtain of water. Everyone has obtained a lot of treasures in the tomb, now it's time to return home. Lin spoke with a joyful expression. Everyone's faces were brimming with joyful smiles as they passed through the spatial passageway. The space around them fluctuated like a dream. As Lin's consciousness blurred, he seemed to see a swordsman carrying a heavy burden forward in the darkness. The swordsman fought relentlessly like an invincible god of war. However, he would also weep at the sight of the twisted demonic creatures that fell to the ground. He fought his entire life, defended his entire life, and searched his entire life. Finally, he looked up at the rising sun and slowly closed his eyes. When Lin regained consciousness, he had already reappeared in the center of the heavenly lake. A light breeze blew past, and the lake rippled with the afterglow of the setting sun. All of the team members also appeared on the heavenly lake. Their expressions were a little unnatural, and they had clearly seen something. Battle God Zi Yang's eyes suddenly rolled into the back of his head, and he frothed at the mouth before falling into the lake. Senior Zi Yang! Lin cried out involuntarily in fright. Hu Guan immediately dove into the lake and scooped Battle God Zi Yang out of the water. Everyone arrived at the edge of the heavenly lake and placed Battle God Zi Yang on the ground. What's wrong with Senior Zi Yang? Su Qianyun was a little perplexed. There's no battle chi here, he's probably not acclimatized to the environment. The little green snake wrapped around White Spirit Snake's arm looked at Battle God Zi Yang as it spoke in an indifferent voice. Lin and the others only came to their senses now. Battle God Zi Yang hadn't even started cultivating. Huh? Then why are you fine, Senior? Yao Mingxi asked. Hee, I've already started dual cultivation. The little green snake transformed into a beautiful woman in green clothes. She sat cross-legged on the ground with her fair and translucent feet bare. And Lin's face flushed with excitement upon hearing Bai Qiong's words. Don't disturb me. I need to condense a demon core first. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong closed her eyes and made a hand seal. There's no interference from battle chi here, so I can focus on advancing. In a split second, a huge vortex of vital energy descended from the sky and poured into her body. Everyone was amazed when they saw this. He advanced just like that, truly domineering. Everyone turned to look at battle god Ziyang to find that he was still convulsing on the ground. They couldn't help but feel sympathy for him. Sigh, so miserable. Speaking of which, Senior Ziyang should be considered an ordinary person now, right? Will he drown? Hu Guan was a little worried. Why don't Junior Hu give him CPR? Anlin suggested with a chuckle. Hu Guan pretended not to hear it and turned his gaze elsewhere, admiring the sunset. Senior Ziyang has the body of a battle emperor. Even if he can't use battle chi, his life force is still there, so this won't be a problem for him. Xianyuan Cheng wasn't worried in the slightest. Although battle god Ziyang looked extremely wretched, he definitely wouldn't die. Ah! Senior Ziyang is vomiting blood. Shock flashed past Su Xiaolan's eyes, and she pointed at the convulsing male who was spitting blood. Xianyuan Cheng, all the team members, I feel like Senior Ziyang is done for. Anlin grimaced as he looked at battle god Ziyang. As if in response to Anlin's words, battle god Ziyang's eyes suddenly widened, and his eyes became bloodshot. Then, his convulsing body stiffened. Afterward, his legs gave way, and his body slowly slumped to the ground. Then, he peacefully closed his eyes. It was like the calm after the climax of a party, or the deathly stillness after the final radiance of the setting sun. All the team members, Tian Lingling and White Spirit Snake's eyes were already red. It was as if they were watching a friend depart forever. Their grief was so intense that it was completely uncontrollable. What should we do now? Anlin was a little confused. Senior Ziyang is a life form with a different energy system from us. If we rashly use immortal spells to help him, it will cause his meridians to reject him. Xianyuan Cheng also had a look of distress and exasperation. Lu Qianhuan's long eyelashes blinked, and her purple eyes suddenly lit up. We can use physical therapy. For example, cardiopulmonary resuscitation or electrocuting the heart. Anlin thought about this seriously. This we can try, but we're afraid that we won't be able to control our strength well. Tian Lingling, you're weak, so you'll be responsible for electrocuting Senior Ziyang. Huh? I'll do it? Tian Lingling was shocked. She looked at all the team members with her big, round eyes and found that all of them were looking at her with trust and encouragement. All right, I'll give it a try. She took a deep breath and silently recited a spell. Lightning gathered in her palm, and she directed it toward the sky. Immortal Eagle spread lightning. Heed my command, vanquish the demon and defend the Tao. She stamped her foot lightly on the ground, and white lightning fell from the sky. Battle god Ziyang was still in a daze, but he finally managed to catch his breath and regain consciousness. He breathed in the earth's air with great difficulty and tried to open his eyes. However, he discovered that lightning had suddenly fallen from the sky. The target seems to be me? Boom! The white lightning struck him, and his entire body spasmed. He felt numb and pain all over. His vision went black, and he fainted again. Ah, I think I just saw battle god Ziyang open his eyes. Tian Lingling exclaimed excitedly. Is that so? Anlin walked over and felt battle god Ziyang's heart. He discovered that there was actually a faint heartbeat. His heart is beating. Tian Lingling, your lightning is indeed effective. Well done. Anlin heaved a sigh of relief and praised her with a smile. Tian Lingling scratched her head sheepishly. Haha. How about I do it a few more times? Do it a few more times. Anlin nodded with a smile. Boom, boom, boom. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong opened her eyes and took a deep breath. There was a satisfied smile on her face. She had successfully broken through. She had successfully materialized a spirit core and advanced to the spirit nurturing stage. She felt a wave of happiness wash over her as she sensed the abundant vital energy between heaven and earth. After a few more days of preparation, I'll break through to the spirit nurturing intermediate stage. Bai Qiong instinctively looked for White Spirit Snake. However, she discovered that White Spirit Snake and her team members were huddled together and discussing something intensely. I think we should strike him again. Don't strike him anymore. Mr. Ziyang has only fainted temporarily. There's no point in striking him again. But his heartbeat is still very weak. If we don't do anything, will his heartbeat suddenly stop? Then we'll strike him again after his heartbeat stops. Wait, in this situation, let me strike him first. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong passed through the crowd and drew a sharp intake of breath when she saw Battle God Ziyang lying on the ground. Battle God Ziyang's appearance was so tragic. He lay on the ground, dripping wet. There was dried blood at the corners of his mouth and on the ground. His hair was curled and charred, and the clothes around his heart were in tatters. It was clear that he had been struck many times by some unknown attack. Ah, little Qing, you've finally broken through. Hurry up and help us check on Battle God Ziyang. White Spirit Snake hugged Bai Qiong's arm excitedly. Thank you, Senior Bai Qiong. We've already done our best. Enlin sighed in exasperation. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong grimaced as she looked at Enlin. Done your best? What did you guys do? Cardiopulmonary resuscitation, Enlin replied with a serious expression. Bai Qiong, are you sure this is cardiopulmonary resuscitation? This is King cardiac arrest. Chapter 359. Within a certain dark space, the bald man spoke with a respectful expression. Master Black, they've already returned to Earth safely. What should we do with the rest of Celestial Immortal Shou Yang's treasures? Black Spirit Snake waved her hand nonchalantly. There's nothing good left anyway. Confiscate the spirit stones and send everything else to Earth to promote the development of the cultivation world there. All right, I'll do that right away. The bald man nodded and was about to leave. Oh right, don't forget to buy some salted duck eggs and century eggs for me. Go to Old Man Chen's shop to buy them, Black Spirit Snake instructed. The bald man faltered upon hearing this. But Old Man Chen is already dead. What did you say? Black Spirit Snake was a little flustered, but she quickly regained her composure. Wait, you haven't been to Earth recently. How would you know he's dead? The bald man's lips twitched. But recently is 50 years. Old Man Chen was over 60 years old at the time, and he didn't cultivate, so he's definitely dead. Black Spirit Snake was a little dazed upon hearing this. So it had already been that long? She looked around at this dark space and sighed with emotion. Before she knew it, she had already been holed up here for 50 years. I can't take it anymore, I'm going to rot. Look after the Zhanqi continent for me, I'm going out for a walk. Black Spirit Snake waved a hand before opening a black hole and disappearing into it without looking back. Sigh. Master Black, I still have to send Shou Yang's remaining treasures. The bald man yelled toward the hole. However, there was no response from the hole. Instead, it slowly closed. The bald man could only smile bitterly upon seeing this. Black Spirit Snake's habit of leaving whenever she wanted to would probably never change. The more mature a woman was, the more insane they would be when they wanted to go. Last time, she had destroyed the Bodhi mountain of the Buddhist kingdom during her battle with the battling Buddha. Who knew what she would do this time? At the border of the heavenly lake on Changbai Mountain. A rare look of sympathy appeared on Bai Qiong's beautiful face. Ziyang, it's all my fault. I wanted to let you adapt to the outside world first before teaching you the method to transform into an energy lifeform. She pointed at a few of Ziyang's meridians and acupoint. Pure energy flowed through her fingertips and poured into Ziyang's body. After a long while, Battle God Ziyang finally opened his eyes in grief and indignation. He said softly, I had a nightmare. I dreamed that the heavens couldn't tolerate me and I was struck by lightning. That's just a dream, Unlin comforted softly. Senior Ziyang, you should hurry up and learn how to transform your energy form from Senior Baiqiong. Senior Baiqiong is already at the spirit nurturing stage now. Lu Qianhuan changed the subject. Battle God Ziyang felt that this was reasonable. His top priority now was to increase his cultivation base as quickly as possible so that he could adapt to this new world and become the Emperor Yuan of this world. Just like that, the focus of the conversation shifted to how to change classes. Unlin heaved a sigh of relief and lay down on the flying carpet feebly. He then slowly closed his eyes in the warm temperature. Perhaps he was too tired, so he fell asleep again. When he woke up again, he saw a white ceiling. Little Lin, you're awake? A familiar voice sounded beside his ear. And Lin's expression shifted slightly upon seeing the middle-aged man beside him. Dad, why are you staying here? He was currently sleeping on a bed. There was a healing spell formation set up in the room, which was glowing with a faint green light. It was clear that his team members had left him here to rest. And Mingchuan smiled upon hearing this. What? As a father, can't I stay here to check on my son? And Lin was a little embarrassed. That's not what I meant. I'm saying that it's already late at night, you should rest early too. Oh, it's 8:30 in the morning now, and Mingchuan replied after looking at his watch. And Lin, Xiaolan has already told me about your experiences in the alternate dimension. This world is so vast, there are all kinds of places. And Mingchuan's expression was one of yearning. And Lin chuckled. Dad, when you reach the spirit nurturing stage, I'll take you to the Taichu continent to broaden your horizons. That continent is much larger than the Zhanqi continent, it's literally boundless. It seems like it's quite difficult for people like us to go to the celestial court. And Mingchuan furrowed his brows. If we go according to procedure, joining the celestial court is one of the prerequisites. But that's all right, we can get in through the back door. Unlin spoke confidently. And Mingchuan looked at Unlin with a peculiar expression. Not only was his son not ashamed in the slightest when talking about getting in through the back door, but there was even a hint of smugness and pride on his face. What was going on? Could it be that everyone in the celestial court was proud of getting in through the back door? All right, we'll talk about going to the Taichu continent later, it's still early. And Mingchuan looked deeply into Unlin's eyes. Little Unlin, you really don't have to fight so hard for opportunities in the future. Take this time for example, you were bedridden for a few days. Even if no one was willing to tell me the details, I know how dangerous the situation was. If anything happens to you, what's the point of me cultivating by myself? Dad. Unlin's heart trembled, and he didn't know how to respond. It was rare for Unlin to return to Earth, but who would have thought that he would turn into a block of ice in front of his father, and now, he was bedridden with severe injuries? It was no wonder that Mingchuan would be overthinking things. The silence was suddenly broken by the sound of a door being opened. Big Brotherin, you're finally awake, woof! Dabai pounced toward Unlin excitedly. Haha, how have you been, Dabai? Unlin couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of Unlin's face. Same old, looking at beautiful women, reading books, watching movies, woof. Dabai stuck out his tongue. Unlin rolled his eyes. Those three things are actually the same thing, right? Big Brother and knows me the best, woof. Dabai looked at Unlin with a gratified expression. Let's not talk about that for now. I brought you something good. Unlin rubbed his storage ring before bringing out a glove with claws that resembled blue blades. He handed it to Dabai and said, This is called the Chaotic Sky-Crushing Claws, and it's a pinnacle spirit tool. If you nurture it well, there's a very good chance that it can evolve into an immortal tool. It's also very effective against metal-type and wind-type spell technique. I'm giving this to you now. Dabai's eyes widened with incredulity as he accepted the spirit tool. Only after sensing the powerful energy fluctuations emanating from the spirit tool did he finally believe that it really was a pinnacle spirit tool. What? Big Brotherin, I didn't think you would really give me a present. This is the first time you've given me a present. I've never received such a good present before. I used to think that I was a free-range pet in the past. I really didn't think. I'm so touched, woof. Dabai was already rambling incoherently as he pounced toward Enlin and began to lick him like a madman. Enlin didn't think that Dabai would dare to rape him right in front of his father. He was completely exhausted and couldn't resist, so he could only yell angrily, "You blind Dabai, this isn't the first time I've given you a present. I've given you so many dried snake emperor pills in the past. Did they all get eaten by a dog?" "That's right, I ate them all, woof," Dabai replied excitedly. He sat on Enlin's waist and gripped onto Enlin's wrist with his paws as he expressed his gratitude. Chapter 360. Enlin rested on his bed for another 2 days. Under the powerful healing effects of the Green Soul Immortal Pill, his internal injuries were finally completely healed. The only thing that he hadn't fully recovered from was the after effects of using the origin energy of the netherworld too much. Although he couldn't use any powerful spell techniques, getting out of bed and walking was no problem for him. During this period of recuperation, some team members continued to live happily in the mortal world, while others practiced their newly obtained inheritances. White Spirit Snake, Battle Goddess Bai Qiong, and Battle God Ziyang also temporarily stayed on the North Mist Mountain. The two battle gods still needed time to adapt to this world. Battle Goddess Bai Qiong broke through again and reached Spirit Nurturing Intermediate stage. Meanwhile, Battle God Ziyang was still in the process of transforming his meridians, and Lin strolled along the bluestone path until he finally arrived in front of a flower bed. A young woman in a white dress stood out among the sea of purple and red flowers. She held a bead in her slender hands, and she was studying the secrets within it. This beautiful young woman was White Spirit Snake, and the bead in her hand was one of the 5 divine weapons of the Zhanqi continent, the White Radiant Bead. It was also Battle Goddess Bai Qiong's original weapon. Of course, it belonged to White Spirit Snake now. "Ah, Senior Poison Lord, why are you here?" A joyful expression appeared on the young woman's face when she saw Enlin, and she ran toward him happily. Her white dress fluttered like clouds and mist, lifting up flower petals and bringing with it a floral fragrance. "I'm here to find Dabai. I'll be returning to the university in 5 days. I'm going to the Celestial Court's information transfer point now and report my experiences to the higher-ups," Enlin said with a smile. "Ah, you're leaving so soon," a disappointed expression appeared on White Spirit Snake's face when she heard that Enlin was returning to the university. "It's not like I'm never coming back. Earth is my home, and I'll come back often." Enlin comforted her with a smile as he patted White Spirit Snake's head. White Spirit Snake's expression eased slightly upon hearing this, and she nodded lightly. "All right, then I'll wait for the Poison Lord to return. The next time we meet, I'll definitely grow to a level that will give you a fright." Enlin felt like White Spirit Snake had already scared him many times. Was she going to shock him again the next time she came back? Was he really going to play the role of a shocked passerby next to the protagonist? "Big Brotherin, taste my third form, Heavenly Wolf Pounce, woof." Dabai's claws were wearing the primordial sky collapsing claw, and tore out 10 extremely resplendent blue blade lights in the sky. The power was extremely powerful and terrifying, and it gave people a very domineering feeling. Enlin looked at Dabai in the sky with a look of approval. He didn't buy this claw for nothing. Just like that, Enlin rode Dabai, whom he had not seen for a long time, and flew excitedly towards the Celestial Court's information transmission point. At this moment, within a bustling city, there was a woman with flawless features and figure walking slowly along a pedestrian street. Her long, black hair danced in the wind, and she wore a white chiffon top and a pair of dark denim pants. Her long, slender legs were accentuated by her jeans, and she was extremely pleasing to the eye, attracting the attention of countless passers-by. Her deep, dark eyes were imbued with a peculiar charm, and those who looked into them couldn't help but be entranced by them. Who would have thought that Earth would have changed so much in just 50 years? The woman surveyed her surroundings with a slight smile on her face as she held a cup of milk tea in her hand. She was none other than Black Spirit Snake, who had come out to play again after 50 years of seclusion. Earth's current level of development should be around the intermediate stage of a second-tier technological civilization. I wonder if the evolution parameters are normal. If not, I'll have to go back and make some adjustments, Black Spirit Snake murmured to herself. In her knowledge, the technological civilizations of this world could be divided into 5 major stages. First-tier technological civilizations were primitive civilizations. Civilizations at this stage could utilize all types of heat energy, such as firewood, coal, and gasoline. Second-tier technological civilizations were particle energy civilizations. Civilizations at this stage could utilize particle energy with proficiency, such as electromagnetic energy, nuclear energy, hydrogen energy, as well as all types of microscopic particle energy and energy wave. Third-tier technological civilizations were ultra-intelligent civilizations. Civilizations at this stage were highly advanced in biological research, and artificial intelligence could almost completely replace the labor force. Furthermore, they could create pseudo-intelligent life forms and manipulate the microscopic to the macroscopic. Fourth-tier technological civilizations were dimensional laws civilizations. Civilizations at this stage could utilize all types of spatial techniques, and when they developed to the extreme, they could even manipulate dimensions and create laws of nature. Fifth-tier technological civilizations were divine Tao civilizations. These civilizations only existed in legends. Once a civilization reached this level, they would ascend en masse. At that time, space, time, the 3,000 great Taos, and even the heavenly Tao would all be under their control. In other words, they were gods. Black Spirit Snake was quite knowledgeable, but the highest level of technological civilization she knew was only a fourth-tier technological civilization. In the end, that civilization had ruined itself. She raised her head just in time to catch sight of a sci-fi movie trailer playing on a huge screen in the building. The trailer depicted a few gigantic robots engaged in melee combat. She almost spat out the milk tea in her mouth upon seeing this. What the hell is this? Do the humans of Earth like this? Such violence and chunibu had something to do with destroying the world? She stroked her chin as she fell into deep thought. Earth was at the intermediate stage of a level 2 technological civilization, so it already possessed the ability to self-destruct. If the humans of Earth decided to blow themselves up, wouldn't Her Majesty be heartbroken? Black Spirit Snake was the right-hand woman of Her Majesty, so she was the god of this world when Her Majesty wasn't around. As such, she naturally shouldered the heavy responsibility of maintaining peace and development on Earth. So the question was, what could she do to stop the suicidal thoughts of the humans of Earth? Return the humans of Earth to Her Majesty's rule? No, that would go against the original intentions of Her Majesty when she created Earth. Forcefully implant the core values of socialism into the minds of all humans? No. That was a large-scale intervention that would result in all types of backlash and repercussions. Establish a war warning system? That was doable, but it wouldn't be very safe, and it would also be quite troublesome to find people to work with. Black Spirit Snake sipped on her milk tea with relish as she contemplated this problem. Her brows furrowed slightly, giving her the appearance of a woman who was immersed in her own melancholy. Some of the passers-by who were attracted by Black Spirit Snake's beauty thought that she was worrying about her work or her relationship. Little did they know that she was worrying about how to maintain world peace. On the other side, Unlin had just finished reporting to the Celestial Court, and he rose into the air atop Debai's back. "Big brotherin', where do we go next, woof?" How about we go to the shopping district and buy some souvenirs to take back to the Celestial Court? Chapter 361. On a certain pedestrian street in a bustling metropolis, Lin walked down the street with a miniature white dog following behind him. I'll buy some radish snacks for the silly rabbit from the Moon Palace. I'll also buy one of the portable video players that Dubai strongly requested for. No, I'll buy two. Just in case Xiao Chou also wants one, I'll download a few hundred monkey videos. What does Xiao Hong want? Should I buy a stereo and download 300 nursery rhymes? Oh, I also need to buy a bunch of books for Zhong Yongyan, the cultured man. Lin no longer accepted shopping assignments, but he would still buy some specialties for his close friends. Soon, he carried a large number of bags and prepared to put them into his storage ring in a secluded place. There were many pedestrians on the street. A handsome man like him would be the main character wherever he went, so he couldn't be too ostentatious when using his spatial magic tool. Soon, he discovered a woman in a white chiffon dress walking toward him. There was no way he wouldn't notice her because she was simply too beautiful. Her main character halo was even more dazzling than his. From his current perspective, the woman's looks were top-notch. This woman had a cold expression. Her long, ink-like hair fell behind her back, and her black eyes seemed to have a magical power that made people want to sink into them. Influenced by this unique temperament, Lin instinctively thought that she was a cultivator. However, after carefully sensing her, he didn't discover any energy fluctuations. The woman was also looking at Lin, and this made Lin feel a little smug. See that? Even such a supreme-grade beauty would be subdued by my looks. What happened next shocked Lin even more. The woman actually took the initiative to stop him. Hello, handsome, may I ask what you think about maintaining world peace? The woman smiled sweetly, and her pitch-black eyes were particularly captivating. Lin was stunned upon hearing this. It was understandable that he attracted attention because he was handsome, and he could also accept it if a beautiful woman took the initiative to strike up a conversation with him. But what the F***ck was with this opening? Could it be that the Earthlings' pickup methods had become so trendy? The first thing she asked was what he thought about maintaining world peace. This woman was none other than Black Spirit Snake, who shouldered the heavy responsibility of maintaining world peace. Lin didn't know her, but she knew Lin. She knew that Lin had lived on Earth for close to 20 years and was very familiar with Earth. Furthermore, he had also experienced the flourishing cultivation culture on the Tai-Chu continent. It could be said that Lin was a talent who had fused the ideas of the two worlds. Perhaps he could get some inspiration from his words. With this in mind, Black Spirit Snake and Lin began their first conversation. Lin was indeed someone who was used to seeing big storms and big waves. Even if it was such a strange way to strike up a conversation, he could still quickly calm down and think about it seriously. Yes, the concept of maintaining world peace is a very broad proposition. How about we find a place to have an in-depth conversation? Lin suggested with a smile. Black Spirit Snake paused momentarily before nodding with a smile. Exhilarating Cafe. Classical and elegant decor, soothing and pleasant music. Black Spirit Snake raised her cup and took a small sip as she looked at the man across from her with a hint of interest in her inky black eyes. Lin was also quite curious about the woman before him. Even though he was very confident in his own charisma, he knew that this woman definitely didn't agree to chat with him just because he was handsome. He felt like this woman was only willing to come to this cafe with him because of his charisma. I feel like everyone has a responsibility to maintain world peace. What we need to do is to focus on one core and two fundamental points. Lin spoke with a solemn expression. Black Spirit Snake's eyes lit up. Focus on one core and two fundamental points? Lin nodded. That's right. We need to focus on ideology and insist that the people be the leaders of the world and the hidden organizations guide them from the shadows. We do need to focus on ideology. A universal ideology can lead the people onto the right path. Insisting that the people be the leaders of the world can prevent the extreme actions of dictatorship. This is also the inevitable trend of social development. But can you elaborate on the hidden organizations guide them from the shadows? Black Spirit Snake really did get into a serious conversation. Lin was completely dumbstruck by Black Spirit Snake's enthusiasm as 10,000 mythological beasts stampeded over his heart. He was only joking around. Why was this woman so serious? Holy F***ck. Was he really going to explore how to maintain world peace with this beautiful woman in a cafe? She wasn't embarrassed, but his embarrassment cancer was about to kick in. However, it could be seen from this that there was definitely something off about this woman, and Lin thought for a moment before speaking again. There are times when the balance between the major powers goes out of control, and when that time comes, we need an organization with a high status to mediate. That organization must be extremely powerful and have a deep understanding of the world. Furthermore, it must be untainted by worldly affairs. Only then will it be able to mediate in a fair and just manner. Black Spirit Snake blinked before nodding. Is there a need for a third party? Powerful beings are revered, and there are weak and powerful beings in this world. The weak want to become powerful, and the powerful want to become even more powerful. All of this involves competition for benefits, so conflict is unavoidable. However, we can also try to make the strong more loving, and make those who maintain the orbit of history more reliable. That's right, I have a WeChat group with a bunch of like-minded seniors. I think you can go talk to them. And Lin's lips twitched. He felt like he had to end this awkward conversation. Why would such a beautiful encounter continue on such a strange topic? Was it because he was chatting in the wrong way, or was this woman just a weirdo? And Lin fell into deep thought upon hearing this. Black Spirit Snake's eyes lit up again upon hearing Lin's suggestion, and she pulled out a white phone from her bag. She had only gotten her hands on a phone 2 days ago, and after playing with it for a while, she had already familiarized herself with its basic functions, so she naturally knew about WeChat. And Lin scanned Black Spirit Snake's QR code, upon which he saw her ID, Black Spirit Snake, and his chest constricted again. Pardon me for asking, but do you know White Spirit Snake? Black Spirit Snake was confused. Who's White Spirit Snake? She then burst into laughter. Don't tell me you think there are other people like White Spirit Snake and Red Spirit Snake just because my ID is Black Spirit Snake? Lin looked at her with a suspicious expression. The group I want to invite you into is called All Cultivators of the World Unite Together to Protect Earth Group. Are you sure you want to join? Black Spirit Snake. Alright, pull me in. Who are you? Lin pressed his thumb onto his storage ring as his expression darkened. Lin had finally lost his patience. Black Spirit Snake's reaction was far too strange after hearing such a crazy group name. This was not the reaction that a normal woman should have. Even Lin didn't believe that she wasn't suspicious. The woman took a sip of coffee and looked at Lin with a dainty expression. What? I really want to talk about world peace. Why are you so angry? If you don't tell me the truth, you're going to have to pay for this coffee. Lin chuckled coldly. Hey, you're making things difficult for me, Black Spirit Snake. The woman raised her eyebrows with displeasure. Lin was just about to say something when a gust of wind blew past. His mind went completely blank, and he stood rooted to the spot. When he came to his senses, he looked around at his surroundings with a blank expression. This was a quaint and comfortable environment, soothing music, and a confused Dubai. The 2 cups of coffee were still exuding a fragrant aroma. Who am I? Where am I? Why did I order 2 cups of coffee? Lin's mouth gaped open, but he couldn't recall what had happened. He felt like he had lost his memory. Chapter 362. Lin turned to Dubai with a curious expression. Dubai, why are we here? Dubai scratched his head and looked around with a hesitant expression. Did we fall for an illusion technique? An amnesia technique? I'm not missing any kidneys or money, so why would they use such a technique on me? Unlin looked at the coffee cup on the table across from him, and picked it up to find that half of it had already been drunk. He sniffed it curiously but didn't find anything special about it. Thus, he took another sip. It tasted pretty good. So someone had a cup of coffee with me, then ran away after casting an amnesia spell on me? Unlin felt like this conjecture was extremely absurd. Which mighty figure would be so bored as to do that? Knowing that one's memory had been erased was a very depressing thing. Humans were always curious. After learning that one's memory had been erased, one would want to know what it was. This was a type of obsessive-compulsive disorder. It was as if one's life would be incomplete if they didn't know what had happened. This was even more painful than what the pangolin had said. Unlin pulled out his phone and wanted to send a message to express his ket-up feelings. Then, he saw an unfamiliar friend with the nickname of Black Spirit Snake. Boom! It was as if something had been opened. Everything that had happened earlier began to replay in his mind. Unlin took a deep breath and opened up his chat with Black Spirit Snake. Black Spirit Snake, who are you? Don't you know it's very immoral to erase someone else's memory? Black Spirit Snake sent a grinning emoji. If I really wanted to erase your memory, do you think you would still be able to remember these things? Fake Taoist Priest Littlein. Fake Taoist Priest Littlein. Then who are you, and why did you come to see me today? Unlin felt like this woman was definitely a mighty figure who had contacted him with an ulterior motive. Was she after his wealth? Or was she after his beauty? Black Spirit Snake sent a smiling emoji. Hee, I'm going to take a shower. Talk to you next time. Unlin almost threw up a mouthful of blood upon seeing this message. *CK. The three killer weapons of chatting, smile, her, and shower escape were all used. Would it kill him to be tactful? Didn't he know that this kind of conversation was very hurtful? He angrily dialed a number. Wow, Senior Poison Master actually called me. I'm so happy. Ahem, White Spirit Snake, I have something to ask you. You have to answer me honestly. Yes, please ask away. Do you know who Black Spirit Snake is? Huh? What was Black Spirit Snake? Don't tell me you think I'm White Spirit Snake, and that's why you think there's a Black Spirit Snake or a Blue Spirit Snake. Unlin's mouth twitched as he listened to these familiar words. He didn't know what to say. After chatting with Black Spirit Snake for a while, he finally hung up the phone with nothing to show for it. He then took a look at his chat window with Black Spirit Snake and heaved a forlorn sigh upon discovering that there was no response from her. Let's go, Dubai, let's continue shopping. Time flew by quickly, and before they knew it, 2 more days had passed. Lu Qianhuan became addicted to a game called PlayerUnknown's Battleground. Su Xiaolan and Su Qianyan bought many different styles of clothing. Big Brother Qing spent a lot of money to buy a secret weapon in Russia. Tian Lingling was about to break through to Spirit Nurturing stage. Battle Goddess by Qiong was about to break through to Spirit Nurturing final stage, and Battle Emperor Ziyang was about to progress to the first stage, Dao Body stage. Their time on Earth drew to a close, and on the last night, Unlin invited Qin Jingtian and the other cultivators who had fought alongside him at the Heavenly Lake to hold a barbecue and beer party that lasted until midnight. Early in the morning, Unlin bade farewell to his father and all of his friends on Earth before returning to the Celestial Court. During this trip to the Shouyang tomb, Unlin had reaped many rewards. Cultivation methods, spirit stones, treasures, inheritances, near-death experiences. It could be said that he had truly returned with a bountiful harvest. Even so, he still felt a little empty in his heart when he left. He felt like the next time he returned to Earth, he could bring his friends and family with him to the Tai Chu continent to flex and have fun. That would be great. Tang Shimin looked down at the vast expanse of land, and not only was his heart empty, his hands were also empty. He thought back to his experiences and learned from them. He had already sworn to himself that the next time he descended into the mortal world, he would return with a bountiful harvest. The teleportation spell formation began to activate at high speed. A brilliant light flashed, and the space around them began to transform. Unlin appeared in the celestial court again, and he breathed in the rich vital energy, upon which his entire body felt a little more comfortable. They had descended into the mortal world for over a month, and now that they were back at the university, all of the team members wore expressions of joy and emotion, and even Xianyuan Qing wore a forlorn expression. During this period of time, not only had they descended into the mortal world, but they had also traveled to foreign continents and strange tombs. Many bizarre events had taken place there, and they had experienced many thrilling battles as well as many interesting opportunities. Now that they had returned to the familiar environment and basked in the tranquil and peaceful atmosphere, they felt as if they had been in another lifetime. The university is truly a paradise for cultivation. Su Xiaolan suddenly sighed with emotion. It's a pity that I'm graduating next year. Lu Qianhuan pouted. And Lin chuckled. It's very simple if you want to stay at the university. You can choose to fail a subject and repeat a year. Lu Qianhuan rolled her eyes and couldn't be bothered to respond to Enlin. Everyone began to return to their residences, but Enlin rode on Dubai and flew off in another direction. In the principal's office, Vice Principal Yuhua was looking at himself in the mirror, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face as he stroked his thick and bushy eyebrows. Knock, 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 Principal, I'm Enlin. Enlin? Yuhua raised an eyebrow. Please come in. Enlin was a little uneasy as he entered the principal's office. He bowed respectfully. Greetings, Principal. Hee, long time no see, Student Enlin. I've heard about what happened at Celestial Immortal Shou Yang's tomb. You did very well. Yuhua praised him with a smile. You're too kind, Principal. I'm just doing my job. Enlin displayed a rare display of modesty. What business do you have here, Student Enlin? Celestial Immortal Yuhua asked curiously. The university has a rule. If you want to apply for a leave of more than 10 days, you must ask for permission from the principal. Enlin replied slowly. Yuhua was even more curious now. Student Enlin, do you want to apply for a leave of absence? Why do you need such a long leave? What difficulties have you encountered? Why don't you tell me? I want to make a trip to the Myriad Mountain Realm. There are some things I need to do, Enlin replied. Vice Principal Yuhua's heart jolted upon hearing this. A thought suddenly occurred to him. This was a good thing. Haha, I'll approve your leave. Take care of yourself, Student Enlin. Yuhua didn't ask any more questions and immediately approved Enlin's leave. Enlin was a little taken aback by how quickly the principal approved Enlin's leave. The next day, Enlin flew toward the Myriad Mountain Realm with Xiao Chou, Xiao Hong, and Dubai in tow. They set off on their journey again,